Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, this is Movie Readings, where I take entire Hollywood scripts and read them from start to finish right here on YouTube. Sometimes these take hours to make, so it could really help me out if you would consider subscribing, like this video, and comment with what you would like the next movie reading to be. Enjoy! Star Wars: A New Hope. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a vast sea of stars serves as a backdrop for the main title. War drums echo through the heavens as a roll-up slowly crawls into infinity. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships, striking from a hidden base, have won their first victory against the evil galactic empire. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. The awesome yellow planet of Tatooine emerges from a total eclipse, her two moons glowing against the darkness. A tiny silver spacecraft, a rebel blockade runner firing lasers from the back of the ship, races through space. It is pursued by a giant Imperial Star Destroyer. Hundreds of deadly laser bolts streak from the Imperial Star Destroyer, causing the main solar fin of the rebel craft to disintegrate. An explosion rocks the ship as two robots, R2-D2 and C-3PO, struggle to make their way through the shaking, bouncing passageway. Both robots are old and battered. R2 is a short, clawed-armed tripod. His face is a mass of computer lights surrounding a radar eye. 3PO, on the other hand, is a tall, slender robot of human proportions. He has a gleaming bronze-like metallic surface of an Art Deco design. Another blast shakes them as they struggle along their way. Did you hear that? They've shut down the main reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness. Rebel troopers rush past the robots and take up positions in the main passageway. They aim their weapons toward the door. We're doomed. The little R2 unit makes a series of electronic sounds that only another robot could understand. There'll be no escape for the princess this time. R2 continues making beeping sounds. Tension mounts as loud metallic latches clank and the screams of heavy equipment are heard moving along the outside hull of the ship. What's that? The Imperial craft has easily overtaken the Rebel blockade runner. The small Rebel ship is being drawn into the underside dock of the giant Imperial starship. The nervous Rebel troopers aim their weapons. Suddenly, a tremendous blast opens up a hole in the main passageway, and a score of fearsome armored space-suited stormtroopers make their way into the smoke-filled corridor. In a few minutes, the entire passageway is ablaze with laser fire. The deadly bolts ricochet in wild random patterns, creating huge explosions. Stormtroopers scatter and duck behind storage lockers. Laser bolts hit several rebel soldiers, who scream and stagger through the smoke, holding shattered arms and faces. An explosion hits near the robots. I should have known better than to trust the logic of a half-sized thermocapillary dehousing assister. R2 counters with an angry rebuttal as the battle rages around the two hapless robots. Tatooine is a death-white wasteland stretching from horizon to horizon. The tremendous heat of two huge twin suns settle on a lone figure, Luke Skywalker, a farm boy with heroic aspirations who looks much younger than his 18 years. His shaggy hair and baggy tunic give him the air of a simple but lovable lad with a prize-winning smile. A light wind whips at him as he adjusts several valves on a large battered moisture evaporator, which sticks out of the desert floor, much like an oil pipe with valves. He is aided by a beat-up tread robot with 6 claw arms. The little robot appears to be barely functioning and moves with jerky motions. A bright sparkle in the morning eye catches Luke's eye, and he instinctively grabs a pair of electro-binoculars from his utility belt. He stands transfixed for a few moments, studying the heavens, then dashes toward his dented, crudely repaired land speeder, an auto-like transport that travels a few feet above the ground on a magnetic field. He motions for the tiny robot to follow him. "Hurry up, come with me. What are you waiting for? Get in gear." The robot scoots around in a tight circle, stops short, and smoke begins to pour out of every joint. Luke throws his arms up in disgust. Exasperated, the young farm boy jumps into his land speeder, leaving the smoldering robot to hum madly. In the Rebel blockade runner, the awesome 7-foot-tall Dark Lord of the Sith makes his way into the blinding light of the main passageway. This is Darth Vader, right hand of the Emperor. His face is obscured by his flowing black robe and grotesque breath mask, which stands out next to the fascist white armored suits of the Imperial stormtroopers. Everyone instinctively backs away from the imposing warrior, and a deathly quiet sweeps through the rebel troops. Several of the rebel troops break and run in a frenzied panic. A woman's hand puts a card into an opening in R2's dome. R2 makes beeping sounds. 3PO stands in a hallway, somewhat bewildered. R2 is nowhere in sight. The pitiful screams of the doomed rebel soldiers can be heard in the distance. "R2, R2, where are you?" A familiar clanking sound attracts 3PO's attention, and he spots little R2 at the end of the hallway in a smoke-filled alcove. A beautiful young girl, about 16 years old, stands in front of R2. Surreal and out of place, dreamlike and half hidden in the smoke, she finishes adjusting something on R2's computer face, then watches as the little robot joins his companion. "At last, where have you been?" Stormtroopers can be heard battling in the distance. "They're heading in this direction. What are we going to do?" "We'll be sent to the spice mines of Kessel, or smashed into who knows what." R2 scoots past his bronze friend and races down the sub-hallway. 3PO chases after him. "Wait a minute, where are you going?" R2 responds with electronic beeps. The evil Darth Vader stands amid the broken and twisted bodies of his foes. He grabs a wounded rebel officer by the neck as an Imperial officer rushes up to the Dark Lord. "The Death Star plans are not in the main computer." Vader squeezes the neck of the rebel officer, who struggles in vain. "Where are those transmissions you intercepted?" Vader lifts the rebel off his feet by his throat. "What have you done with those plans?" "We intercepted no transmissions. This is a consular ship. We're on a diplomatic mission." "If this is a consular ship, where is the ambassador?" The rebel refuses to speak, but eventually cries out as the Dark Lord begins to squeeze the officer's throat, creating a gruesome snapping and choking until the soldier goes limp. Vader tosses the dead soldier against the wall and turns to his troops. "Commander, tear this ship apart until you've found those plans, and bring me the ambassador. I want her alive." The stormtroopers scurry into the sub-hallways. The lovely young girl huddles in a small alcove as the stormtroopers search through the ship. She is Princess Leia Organa, a member of the Alderaan Senate. The fear in her eyes slowly gives way to anger as the muted, crushing sounds of the approaching stormtroopers grow louder. One of the troopers spots her. There she is. Set for stun. Leia steps from her hiding place and blasts a trooper with her laser pistol. She starts to run, but is felled by a paralyzing ray. The troopers inspect her inert body. She'll be all right. Inform Lord Vader we have a prisoner. R2 stops before the small hatch of an emergency life pod. He snaps the seal on the main latch, and a red warning light begins to flash. The stubby Astro robot works his way into the cramped four-man pod. Hey, you're not permitted in there. It's restricted. You'll be deactivated, for sure. R2 beeps something to him. Don't call me a mindless philosopher, you overweight glob of grease. Now come out before someone sees you. R2 whistles something at his reluctant friend regarding the mission he is about to perform. Secret mission? What plans? What are you talking about? I'm not getting in there. R2 isn't happy with 3PO's stubbornness, and he beeps and twangs angrily. A new explosion, this time very close, sends dust and debris through the narrow sub-hallway. Flames lick at 3PO, and after a flurry of electronic swearing from R2, the lanky robot jumps into the life pod. I'm going to regret this. On the main view screen of the Imperial Star Destroyer, the life pod carrying the two terrified robots speed away from the stricken rebel spacecraft. There goes another one. Hold your fire. There are no life forms. It must have short-circuited. R2 and 3PO look out at the receding Imperial starship. Stars circle as the pod rotates through the galaxy. That's funny. The damage does not look as bad from out here. R2 beeps an assuring response. Are you sure this thing is safe? On Tatooine, heat waves radiate from the dozen or so bleached white buildings. Luke pilots his land speeder through the dusty, empty streets of the tiny settlement. An old woman runs to get out of the way of the speeding vehicle, shaking her fist at Luke as he flies past. I told you kids to slow down! Luke bursts into the power station, waking the Fixer, a rugged mechanic, and Cammy, a sexy, disheveled girl who's been asleep in his lap. They grumble as he races through the office, yelling wildly. Did I hear a young noise blast through here? It was just Wormy on another rampage. Luke bounces into a small room behind the office where Deke and Windy, two tough boys about the same age as Luke, are playing a computer pool-like game with Biggs, a burly, handsome boy a few years older than the rest. His flashy city attire is a sharp contrast to the loose-fitting tunics of the farm boys. A robot repairs some equipment in the background. Shape it up, you guys. Biggs? Luke's surprise at the appearance of Biggs gives way to great joy and emotion. They give each other a great bear hug. I didn't know you were back. When did you get in? Just now. I wanted to surprise you, hotshot. I thought you'd be here. Certainly didn't expect you to be out working. The academy didn't change you much. But you're back so soon. Hey, what happened? Didn't you get your commission? Biggs has an air of cool that seems slightly phony. Of course I got it. Signed aboard the Rand Ecliptic last week. First mate Biggs Darklighter at your service. He salutes. I just came to say goodbye, to all you unfortunate landlocked simpletons." Everyone laughs. The dazzling spectacle of his dashing friend is almost too much for Luke, but suddenly he snaps out of it. "I almost forgot. There's a battle going on, right here in our system. Come look." "Not again. Forget it." The group stumbles out into the stifling desert sun. Cammy and the Fixer complain and are forced to shade their eyes. Luke has his binoculars out, scanning the heavens. There they are. Biggs takes the binoculars from Luke as the others strain to see something with the naked eye. Through the binoculars, Biggs sees two small silver specks. "That's no battle, hotshot. They're just sitting there. Probably a freighter tanker refueling." "But there was a lot of firing earlier." Cammy grabs the binoculars away, banging them against the building in the process, and Luke grabs them. "Hey, easy with those." "Don't worry about it, Wormy." The Fixer gives Luke a hard look, and the young farm boy shrugs his shoulders in resignation. "I keep telling you, the rebellion is a long way from here." "I doubt if the Empire would even fight to keep this system. Believe me, Luke, this planet is a big hunk of nothing." Luke agrees, although it's obvious he isn't sure why. The group stumbles back into the power station, grumbling about Luke's ineptitude. Princess Leia is led down a low-ceilinged hallway by a squad of armored stormtroopers. Her hands are bound, and she is brutally shoved when she is unable to keep up with the briskly marching troops. They stop in a smoky hallway as Darth Vader emerges from the shadows. The sinister Dark Lord stares hard at the frail young senator, but she doesn't move. "Lord Vader, I should have known. Only you could be so bold. The Imperial Senate will not sit for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic—" "Don't play games with me, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. You passed directly through a restricted system. Several transmissions were beamed to this ship by rebel spies. I want to know what happened to the plans they sent you." "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate, on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan." "You are part of the Rebel Alliance, and a traitor. Take her away." Leia is marched down the hallway, and into a smoldering hole, blasted in the side of the ship. An Imperial commander turns to Vader. "Holding her is dangerous. If word of this gets out, it could generate sympathy for the rebellion in the Senate." "I have traced the rebel spies to her. Now she is my only link to find their secret base. She'll die before she tells you anything." "Leave that to me. Send a distress signal, then inform the Senate that all aboard were killed." Another Imperial officer approaches Vader and the commander. They stop and snap to attention. "Lord Vader, the battle station plans are not aboard this ship, and no transmissions were made. An escape pod was jettisoned during the fighting, but no life forms were aboard." Vader turns to the commander. "She must have hidden the plans in the escape pod. Send a detachment down to retrieve them. See to it personally, Commander. There will be no one to stop us this time." "Yes, sir." The Imperial Star Destroyer comes over the surface of the planet Tatooine, Junland, or No Man's Land, where the rugged desert mesas meet the foreboding dune sea. The two helpless astrodroids kick up clouds of sand as they leave the life pod and clumsily work their way across the desert wasteland. The life pod in the distance rests half buried in the sand. "How did I get into this mess? I really don't know how. We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life." R2 answers with beeping sounds. "I've got to rest before I fall apart." My joints are almost frozen. R2 continues to respond with beeping sounds. What a desolate place this is. Suddenly R2 whistles, makes a sharp right turn, and starts off in the direction of the rocky desert mesas. 3PO stops and yells at him. Where are you going? A stream of electronic noises pours forth from the small robot. Well, I'm not going that way. It's much too rocky. This way is much easier. R2 counters with a long whistle. What makes you think there are settlements over there? R2 continues to make beeping sounds. Don't get technical with me. R2 continues to make beeping sounds. What mission? What are you talking about? I've had just about enough of you. Go that way. You'll be malfunctioning within a day, you nearsighted scrap pile. 3PO gives the little robot a kick and starts off in the direction of the vast dune sea. And don't let me catch you following me begging for help, because you won't get it. R2's reply is a rather rude sound. He turns and trudges off in the direction of the towering mesas. No more adventures. I'm not going that way. R2 beeps to himself as he makes his way toward the distant mountains. 3PO, hot and tired, struggles up over the ridge of a dune, only to find more dunes, which seem to go on for endless miles. He looks back in the direction of the now distant rock mesas. That malfunctioning little twerp. This is all his fault. He tricked me into going this way. But he'll do no better. In a huff of anger and frustration, 3PO knocks the sand from his joints. His plight seems hopeless, when a glint of reflected light in the distance reveals an object moving toward him. Wait, what's that? A transport! I'm saved! The bronze android waves frantically and yells at the approaching transport. Over here! Help! Please help! Luke and Biggs are talking and drinking a malt brew at the Anchorhead Settlement Power Station. Fixer and the others can be heard working inside. Luke, very animated. So I cut off my power, shut down the afterburners, and came in low on Deke's trail. I was so close I thought I was going to fry my instruments. As it was, I busted up the Skyhopper pretty bad. Uncle Owen was pretty upset. He grounded me for the rest of the season. You should have been there. It was fantastic. You ought to take it easy, Luke. You may be the hottest bush pilot this side of Mos Eisley, but those little Skyhoppers are dangerous. Keep it up and one day, whammo! You're going to be nothing more than a dark spot on the downside of a canyon wall. Look who's talking. Now that you've been around those giant starships, you're beginning to sound like my uncle. You've gotten soft in the city. I've missed you, kid. Well, things haven't been the same since you left, Biggs. It's been so quiet. Biggs looks around and then leans close to Luke. Luke, I didn't come back just to say goodbye. I shouldn't tell you this, but you're the only one I can trust, and if I don't come back, I want somebody to know. Luke's eyes are wide with Biggs' seriousness and loyalty. What are you talking about? I've made some friends at the academy. He whispers. When our frigate goes out to one of the central systems, we're going to jump ship and join the Alliance. Luke, amazed and stunned, is almost speechless. Join the rebellion? Are you kidding? How? Quiet down, will ya? You got a mouth bigger than a meteor crater. I'm sorry, I'm quiet. Listen how quiet I am. You can barely hear me. Biggs shakes his head angrily and then continues. My friend has a friend on Bestine who might help us make contact. You're crazy. You could wander around forever trying to find them. I know, it's a long shot. But if I don't find them, then I'll do what I can on my own. It's like we always talked about. Luke, I'm not going to wait for the Empire to draft me into service. The rebellion is spreading, and I want to be on the right side, the side I believe in. And I'm stuck here. I thought you were going to the academy next term. You'll get your chance to get off this rock. Not likely. I had to cancel my application. There's been a lot of unrest among the sand people since you left. They've even raided the outskirts of Anchorhead. Your uncle could hold off a whole colony of sand people with one blaster. I know, but he's got enough vaporators going to make the place pay off. He needs me just one more season, and I can't leave him now. I feel for you, Luke. You're going to have to learn what seems to be important, or what really is important. What good is all your uncle's work if it's all taken over by the Empire? You know they're starting to nationalize commerce in the central systems. It won't be long before your uncle is merely a tenant, slaving for the greater glory of the Empire. It couldn't happen here. You said it yourself. The Empire won't bother with this rock. Things always change. I wish I was going. Are you going to be around long? No, I'm leaving in the morning. Then I guess I won't see you. Maybe someday. I'll keep a lookout. Well, I'll be at the academy next season. After that, who knows? I won't be drafted into the Imperial Starfleet, that's for sure. Take care of yourself. You'll always be the best friend I've got. So long, Luke. Biggs turns away from his old friend and heads toward the power station. The gargantuan rock formations are shrouded in a strange foreboding mist, and the ominous sounds of unearthly creatures fill the air. R2 moves cautiously through the creepy rock canyon, inadvertently making a loud clicking noise as he goes. He hears a distant, hard, metallic sound and stops for a moment. Convinced he's alone, he continues on his way. In the distance, a pebble tumbles down the steep canyon wall, and a small dark figure darts into the shadows. A little further up the canyon, a slight flicker of light reveals a pair of eyes in the dark recesses only a few feet from the narrow path. The unsuspecting robot waddles along the rugged trail until suddenly, out of nowhere, a powerful magnetic ray shoots out of the rocks and engulfs him in an eerie glow. He manages one short electronic squeak before he topples over onto his back. His bright computer lights flicker off, then on and off again. Out of the rocks scurry 3 Jawas, no taller than R2. They holster strange and complex weapons as they cautiously approach the robot. They wear grubby cloaks and their faces are shrouded, so only their glowing eyes can be seen. They hiss and make odd guttural sounds as they heave the heavy robot onto their shoulders and carry him off down the trail. The 8 Jawas carry R2 out of the canyon to a huge, tank-like vehicle, the size of a 4-story house. They weld a small disc on the side of R2, then put him under a large tube on the side of the vehicle. The little robot is sucked into the giant machine. The filthy little Jawas scurry like rats up small ladders and enter the main cabin of the behemoth transport. It is dim in the hold area of the sand crawler. R2 switches on a small floodlight on his forehead and stumbles around the scrap heap. The narrow beam swings across rusty metal rocket parts and an array of grotesquely twisted and maimed astro-robots. He lets out a pathetic electronic whimper and stumbles off toward what appear to be a door at the end of the chamber. R2 enters a wide room with a 4-foot ceiling. In the middle of the scrap heap sit a dozen or so robots of various shapes and sizes. Some are engaged in electronic conversation, while others simply mill about. A voice of recognition calls out from the gloom. R2, it's you, it's you! A battered 3PO scrambles up to R2 and embraces him. The enormous sandcrawler lumbers off toward the magnificent twin suns, which are slowly setting over a distant mountain ridge. 4 Imperial stormtroopers mill about in front of the half-buried life pod that brought R2 and 3PO to Tatooine. A trooper yells to an officer some distance away. Someone was in the pod. The tracks go off in this direction. The second trooper picks up a small bit of metal out of the sand and gives it to the first trooper. Look, sir, droids. The sandcrawler moves slowly down a great sand dune. 3PO and R2 noisily bounce along inside the cramped prison chamber. R2 appears to be shut off. Wake up! Wake up! Suddenly, the shaking and bouncing of the sandcrawler stops, creating quite a commotion in the mechanical men. 3PO's fist bangs the head of R2, whose computer lights pop on as he begins beeping. At the far end of the long chamber, a hatch opens, filling the chamber with blinding white light. A dozen or so Jawas make their way through the odd assortment of robots. We're doomed! A Jawa starts moving toward them. Do you think they'll melt us down? R2 responds, making beeping sounds. Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Will this ever end? The Jawas mutter gibberish as they busily line up their battered captives, including R2 and 3PO, in front of the enormous sandcrawler, which is parked beside a small homestead, consisting of 3 large holes in the ground, surrounded by several tall moisture vaporators, and 1 small adobe block house. The Jawas scurry around, fussing over the robots, straightening them up or brushing some dust from a dented metallic elbow. The shrouded little creatures smell horribly, attracting small insects to the dark areas where their mouths and nostrils should be. Out of the shadows of a dingy side building limps Owen Lars, a large burly man in his mid-50s. His reddish eyes are sunken in a dust-covered face. As the farmer carefully inspects each robot, he is closely followed by his slump-shouldered nephew, Luke Skywalker. One of the vile little Jawas walks ahead of the farmer, spouting an animated sales pitch in a queer, unintelligible language. A voice calls out from one of the huge holes that form the homestead. Luke goes over to the edge to see his Aunt Beru standing in the main courtyard. Luke, tell Owen that if he gets a translator, to be sure it speaks Bocce. It looks like we don't have much of a choice, but I'll remind him. Luke returns to his uncle as they look over the equipment for sale with the Jawa leader. I have no need for a protocol droid. 3PO quickly. Sir, not in an environment such as this. That's why I have always been programmed for over 30 secondary functions. What I really need is a droid that understands the binary language of moisture vaporators. Vaporators, sir. My first job was programming binary load lifters, very similar to your vaporators. You could say, do you speak Bocce? Of course I can, sir. It's like a second language for me. I'm as fluent in Bocce. Alright, shut up. He turns to the Jawa. I'll take this one. Shutting up, sir. Luke, take these 2 over to the garage, will you? I want you to have both of them cleaned up before dinner. But I was going to go into Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Now come on, get to it. All right. Come on. And the red one. Come on, Red, let's go. As the Jawas start to lead the 3 remaining robots back into the sandcrawler, R2 lets out a pathetic little beep and starts after his old friend 3PO. He is restrained by a slimy Jawa who zaps him with a control box. Owen is negotiating with the head Jawa. Luke and the 2 robots start off for the garage when a plate pops off the head of the red Astro Droid's headplate, and it sparks wildly. Uncle Owen? Yeah? This R2 unit has a bad motivator. Look. To the head Jawa. Hey, what are you trying to push on us? The Jawa goes into a loud spiel. Meanwhile, R2 has sneaked out of line and is moving up and down trying to attract attention. He lets out a low whistle. 3PO taps Luke on the shoulder, pointing to R2. Excuse me, sir, but that R2 unit is in prime condition. A real bargain. Uncle Owen? Yeah? What about that one? To the Jawa. What about that blue one? We'll take that one. With a little reluctance, the scruffy dwarf trades the damaged astrodroid for R2. Yeah, take it away. I'm quite sure you'll be very pleased with that one, sir. He really is in first-class condition. I've worked with him before. Here he comes. Owen pays off the whining Jawa as Luke and the two robots trudge off toward a grimy homestead entry. Okay, let's go. Now, don't you forget this. Why I should stick my neck out for you is quite beyond my capacity. The garage is cluttered and worn, but a friendly, peaceful atmosphere permeates the low gray chamber. 3PO lowers himself into a large tub filled with warm oil. Near the battered land speeder, little R2 rests on a large battery with a cord to his face. Thanks to the maker, this oil bath is going to feel so good. I've got such a bad case of dust contamination, I can barely move. R2 beeps a muffled reply. Luke seems to be lost in thought as he runs his hand over the damaged fin of the small two-man Skyhopper spaceship resting in a low hangar off the garage. Finally, Luke's frustrations get the better of him, and he slams a wrench across the workbench. It just isn't fair. Oh, Biggs is right. I'm never going to get out of here. Is there anything I might do to help? Luke glances at the battered robot. A bit of his anger drains, and a tiny smile creeps across his face. Well, not unless you can alter time, speed up the harvest, or teleport me off this rock. I don't think so, sir. I'm only a droid and not very knowledgeable about such things. Not on this planet, anyway. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure which planet I'm on. Well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you're on the planet that it's furthest from. I see, sir. Oh, you can call me Luke. I see, Sir Luke. Just Luke. And I am C-3PO, Human-Cyborg Relations. This is my counterpart, R2-D2. Hello. R2 beeps in response. Luke unplugs R2 and begins to scrape several connectors on the robot's head with a chrome pick. 3PO climbs out of the oil tub and begins wiping oil from his bronze body. You got a lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action. With all we've been through, sometimes I'm amazed we are in as good condition as we are. What with the rebellion and all. You know of the rebellion against the Empire? That's how we came to be in your service, if you take my meaning, sir. Have you been in many battles? Several, I think. Actually, there's not much to tell. I'm not much more than an interpreter, and not very good at telling stories. Well, not at making them interesting, anyway. Luke struggles to remove a small metal fragment from R2's neck joint. He uses a larger pick. Well, my little friend, you've got something jammed in here real good. Were you on a cruiser, or... The fragment breaks loose with a snap, sending Luke tumbling head over heels. He sits up and sees a 12-inch, three-dimensional hologram of Leia Organa, the rebel senator, being projected from the face of little R2. The image is a rainbow of colors as it flickers and jiggles in the dimly lit garage. Luke's mouth hangs open in awe. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. What's this? R2 looks around and sheepishly beeps an answer for 3PO to translate. Leia continues to repeat the sentence fragment over and over. What is that? He asked you a question. What is that? Pointing at Leia. R2 whistles his surprise as he pretends to just notice the hologram. He looks around and sheepishly beeps an answer for 3PO to translate. Leia continues to repeat the sentence fragment over and over. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Oh, he says it's nothing, sir. Merely a malfunction. Old data. Pay it no mind. Luke becomes intrigued by the beautiful girl. Who is she? She's beautiful. I'm afraid I'm not quite sure, sir. I think she was a passenger on our last voyage. A person of some importance, sir. I believe. Our captain was attached to... Is there more to this recording? Luke reaches out for R2, but he lets out several frantic squeaks and a whistle. Behave yourself, R2. You're going to get us in trouble. It's all right. You can trust him. He's our new master. R2 whistles and beeps a long message to 3PO. He says he's the property of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a resident of these parts, and it's a private message for him. Quite frankly, sir, I don't know what he's talking about. Our last master was Captain Antilles, but with what we've been through, this R2 unit has become a bit eccentric. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wonder if he means old Ben Kenobi. I beg your pardon, sir, but do you know what he's talking about? Well, I don't know anyone named Obi-Wan, but old Ben lives out beyond the Dune Sea. He's kind of a strange old hermit. Luke gazes at the beautiful young princess for a few moments. I wonder who she is. It sounds like she's in trouble. I better play back the whole thing. R2 beeps something to 3PO. He says the restraining bolt has short-circuited his recording system. He suggests that if you remove the bolt, he might be able to play back the entire recording. Luke looks longingly at the lovely little princess and hasn't really heard what 3PO has been saying. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess you're too small to run away on me if I take this off. Okay. Luke takes a wedged bar and pops the restraining bolt off R2's side. There you go. The princess immediately disappears. Well, wait a minute. Where'd she go? Bring her back. Play the entire message. R2 beeps an innocent reply as 3PO sits up in embarrassment. What message? The one you're carrying around in your rusty innards. A woman's voice calls out from another room. Luke! Luke, come to dinner! Luke stands up and shakes his head at the malfunctioning robot. All right, I'll be right there, Aunt Beru. I'm sorry, sir, but he appears to have picked up a slight flutter. Luke tosses R2's restraining bolt on the workbench and hurries out of the room. Well, see what you can do with him. I'll be right back. Just you reconsider playing that message for him. R2 beeps in response. No, I don't think he likes you at all. R2 beeps. No, I don't like you either. Luke's Aunt Beru, a warm, motherly woman, fills a pitcher with blue fluid from a refrigerated container in the well-used kitchen. She puts the pitcher on a tray with some bowls of food and starts for the dining area. Luke sits with his Uncle Owen before a table covered with steaming bowls of food as Aunt Beru carries in a bowl of red grain. You know, I think that R2 unit we bought might have been stolen. What makes you think that? Well, I stumbled across a recording while I was cleaning him. He says he belongs to someone named Obi-Wan Kenobi. Owen is greatly alarmed at the mention of his name, but manages to control himself. I think he might have meant old Ben. Do you know what he's talking about? Well, I wonder if he's related to Ben. Owen breaks loose with a fit of uncontrolled anger. That old man's just a crazy old wizard. Tomorrow I want you to take that R2 unit to Anchorhead and have its memory flushed. That'll be the end of it. It belongs to us now. But what if this Obi-Wan comes looking for him? He won't. I don't think he exists anymore. He died about the same time as your father. He knew my father? I told you to forget it. Your only concern is to prepare the new droids for tomorrow. In the morning, I want them on the South Ridge, working out those condensers. Yes, sir. I think those droids are going to work out fine. In fact, I was also thinking about our agreement, about my staying on another season. And if these droids do work out, I want to transmit my application to the Academy this year. Owen's face becomes a scowl, although he tries to suppress it. You mean the next semester before harvest? Sure, there are more than enough droids. Harvest is when I need you the most. Only one more season. This year we'll make enough on the harvest, so I'll be able to hire some more hands. Then you can go to the Academy next year. Luke continues to toy with his food, not looking at his uncle. You must understand, I need you here, Luke. But it's a whole nother year. Look, it's only one more season. Luke pushes his half-eaten plate of food aside and stands. Yeah, that's what you said last year, when Biggs and Tank left. Where are you going? It looks like I'm going nowhere. I have to finish cleaning those droids. Resigned to his fate, Luke paddles out of the room. Owen mechanically finishes his dinner. Owen, he can't stay here forever. Most of his friends have gone. It means so much to him. I'll make it up to him next year, I promise. Luke is just not a farmer, Owen. He has too much of his father in him. That's what I'm afraid of. The giant twin suns of Tatooine slowly disappear behind a distant dune range. Luke stands watching them for a few moments, then reluctantly enters the domed entrance to the homestead. Luke enters the garage to discover the robots nowhere in sight. He takes a small control box from his utility belt, similar to the ones the Jawas were carrying. He activates the box, which creates a low hum. Then 3PO, letting out a short yell, pops up from behind the Skyhopper spaceship. What are you doing hiding there? 3PO stumbles forward, but R2 is still nowhere in sight. It wasn't my fault, sir. Please don't deactivate me. I told him not to go, but he's faulty and malfunctioning. He kept babbling on about his mission. Oh no. Luke races out of the garage, followed by 3PO. Luke rushes out of the small domed entrance to the homestead and searches the darkening horizon for the small tripod astro robot. 3PO struggles out of the homestead and on the salt flat as Luke scans the landscape with his electro binoculars. That R2 unit has always been a problem. These astro droids are getting quite out of hand. Even I can't understand their logic at times. How could I be so stupid? He's nowhere in sight. Blast it! Pardon me, sir, but couldn't we go after him? It's too dangerous with all the sand people around. We'll have to wait until morning. Owen yells up from the homestead plaza. Luke, I'm shutting the power down for the night. All right, I'll be there in a minute. Boy, am I gonna get it. He takes one final look across the dim horizon. You know, that little droid is gonna cause me a lot of trouble. Oh, he excels at that, sir. Morning slowly creeps into the sparse but sparkling oasis of the open courtyard. The idyll is broken by the yelling of Uncle Owen, his voice echoing throughout the homestead. Luke! Luke! Where could he be loafing now? The interior of the kitchen is a warm glow as Aunt Beru prepares the morning breakfast. Owen enters in a huff. "Have you seen Luke this morning?" "He said he had some things to do today before he started, so he left early." "Did he take those 2 new droids with him?" "I think so." "Well, he'd better have those units in the South Range repaired by midday, or there'll be hell to pay." The rock and sand of the desert floor are a blur as 3PO pilots the sleek land speeder gracefully across the vast wasteland. Luke leans over the back of the speeder and adjusts something in the motor compartment. "How's that?" 3PO signals that it's fine, and Luke turns back into the wind-whipped cockpit and pops the canopy shut. Old Ben Kenobi lives out in this direction somewhere, but I don't see how an R2 unit could have come this far. We must have missed him. Uncle Owen isn't going to take this very well. "Sir, would it help if I told him it was my fault?" "Sure. He needs you. He'd probably only deactivate you for a day or so." "Deactivate?" "Well, on the other hand, if you hadn't removed his restraining bolt..." "Wait, there's something dead ahead on the scanner. It looks like our droid. Hit the accelerator." From high on a rock mesa, the tiny land speeder can be seen gliding across the desert floor. Suddenly in the foreground, 2 weather-beaten sand people, shrouded in their grimy desert cloaks, peer over the edge of the rock mesa. One of the marginally human creatures raises a long, ominous laser rifle and points it at the speeder, but the second creature grabs the gun before it can be fired. The Sand People, or Tusken Raiders as they're sometimes called, speak in a coarse barbaric language as they get into an animated argument. The second Tusken Raider seems to get in the final word, and the nomads scurry over the rocky terrain. The Tusken Raiders approach 2 large banthas standing tied to a rock. The monstrous bear-like creatures are as large as elephants, with huge red eyes, tremendous looped horns, and long furry dinosaur-like tails. The Tusken Raiders mount saddles strapped to the huge creatures' shaggy backs, and ride off down the rugged bluff. The speeder is parked on the floor of a massive canyon. Luke, with his long laser rifle slung over his shoulder, stands before little R2. "Hey, whoa, just where do you think you're going?" The little droid whistles a feeble reply as 3PO poses menacingly behind the little runway. "Master Luke here is your rightful owner. We'll have no more of this Obi-Wan Kenobi gibberish, and don't talk to me about your mission either. You're fortunate he doesn't blast you into a million pieces right here." "Well, come on, it's getting late. I only hope we can get back before Uncle Owen really blows up." "If you don't mind my saying so, sir, I think you should deactivate the little fugitive once you've gotten him back in your workshop." "No, he's not going to try anything." Suddenly, the little robot jumps to life with a mass of frantic whistles and screams. "What's wrong with him now?" "Oh my. Sir, he says there are several creatures approaching from the southeast." Luke swings his rifle into position and looks to the south. "Sand people, or worse. Come on, let's have a look. Come on." Luke carefully makes his way to the top of the rock ridge and scans the canyon with his electro-binoculars. He spots the 2 riderless banthas. 3PO struggles up behind the young adventurer. "There are 2 banthas down there, but I don't see any..." "Wait a second. They're sand people all right. I can see one of them now." Luke watches the distant Tusken Raiders through his electro-binoculars. Suddenly, something huge moves in front of his field of view, but before Luke or 3PO can react, a large gruesome Tusken Raider looms over them. 3PO is startled and backs away, right off the side of the cliff. He can be heard for several moments as he clangs, bangs, and rattles down the side of the mountain. the towering creature brings down his curved, double-pointed Gatterfee, the dreaded axe blade that has struck terror in the heart of the local settlers. But Luke manages to block the blow with his laser rifle, which is smashed to pieces. The terrified farm boy scrambles backward until he is forced to the edge of a deep crevice. The sinister raider stands over him with his weapon raised and lets out a horrible, shrieking laugh. R2 forces himself into the shadows of a small alcove in the rocks as the vicious sand people walk past, carrying the inert Luke Skywalker, who's dropped in a heap before the speeder. The sand people ransack the speeder, throwing parts and supplies in all directions. Suddenly they stop, and everything is quiet for a few moments. A great howling moan is heard echoing throughout the canyon, which sends the sand people flying in terror. R2 moves even tighter into the shadows, as the slight swishing sound that frightened off the sand people grows even closer, until a shabby old desert rat of a man appears and leans over Luke. His ancient leathery face, cracked and weathered by exotic climates, is set off by dark penetrating eyes and a scraggly white beard. Ben Kenobi squints his eyes as he scrutinizes the unconscious farm boy. R2 makes a slight sound, and Ben turns and looks right at him. "Hello there. Come here, my little friend. Don't be afraid." R2 waddles over to where Luke lies crumpled in a heap and begins to whistle and beep his concern. Ben puts his hand on Luke's forehead and he begins to come around. "Don't worry, he'll be all right." "What happened?" "Rest easy, son. You've had a busy day. You're fortunate you're still in one piece." "Ben? Ben Kenobi? Boy, am I glad to see you. The Junlan wastes are not to be traveled lightly. Tell me, young Luke, what brings you out this far?" "Oh, this little droid. I think he's searching for his former master. I've never seen such devotion in a droid before. There seems to be no stopping him. He claims to be the property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi." "Is he a relative of yours? Do you know who he's talking about?" Ben ponders this for a moment, scratching his scruffy beard. "Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan? Now that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. A long time. I think my uncle knew him. He said he was dead." "Oh, he's not dead. Not yet." "You know him?" "Well, of course. Of course I know him. He's me. I haven't gone by the name Obi-Wan since, before you were born." "Then the droid does belong to you." "I don't seem to ever remember owning a droid. Very interesting." He suddenly looks up at the overhanging cliffs. "I think we better get indoors. The sand people are easily startled, but they will soon be back in greater numbers." Luke sits up and rubs his head. R2 lets out a pathetic beep, causing Luke to remember something. He looks around. 3PO! Little R2 stands at the edge of a large sand pit and begins to chatter away in electronic whistles and beeps. Luke and Ben stand over a very dented and tangled 3PO, lying half buried in the sand. One of his arms has broken off. Luke tries to revive the inert robot by shaking him, and then flips a hidden switch on his back several times, until finally the mechanical man's systems turn on. "Where am I? I must have taken a bad step. Can you stand? We've got to get out of here before the sand people return." "I don't think I can make it. You go on, Master Luke. There's no sense in you risking yourself on my account. I'm done for." R2 makes a beeping sound. "No, you're not. What kind of talk is that?" Luke and Ben help the battered robot to his feet. Little R2 watches from the top of the pit. Ben glances around suspiciously. Sensing something, he stands up and sniffs the air. Quickly, son. They're on the move. Ben Kenobi's dwelling is a small Spartan hovel. It's cluttered with desert junk, but still manages to radiate an air of time-worn comfort and security. Luke is in one corner, repairing 3PO's arm, as old Ben sits thinking. No, my father didn't fight in the wars. He was a navigator and a spice freighter. That's what your uncle told you. He didn't hold with your father's ideals. He thought he should have stayed here and not gotten involved. You fought in the Clone Wars? Yes, I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father. I wish I had known him. He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself, and he was a good friend. Which reminds me. Ben gets up and walks to a chest where he rummages around. As Luke finishes repairing 3PO and starts to fit the restraining bolt back on, 3PO looks at him nervously. Luke thinks about the bolt for a moment, then puts it on the table. Ben shuffles up and presents Luke with a short handle with several electronic gadgets attached to it. I have something here for you. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. He feared you might follow old Obi-Wan on some damned fool idealistic crusade like your father did. Sir, if you'll not be needing me, I'll close down for a while. Sure, go ahead. Ben hands Luke the saber. What is it? Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or as random as a blaster. Luke pushes a button on the handle. A long beam shoots out about 4 feet and flickers there. The light plays across the ceiling. An elegant weapon for a more civilized time. For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire. Luke hasn't really been listening. How did my father die? A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father. Now the Jedi are all but extinct. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force. The Force? Well, the Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. R2 makes beeping sounds. Now let's see if we can't figure out what you are, my little friend, and where you come from. I saw part of the message. He was... Luke is cut short as the recorded image of the beautiful young rebel princess is projected from R2's face. I seem to have found it. Luke stops his work as the lovely girl's image flickers before his eyes. General Kenobi, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars. Now he begs you to help him in his struggle against the Empire. I regret that I am unable to present my father's request to you in person, but my ship has fallen under attack, and I'm afraid my mission to bring you to Alderaan has failed. I have placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the memory systems of this R2 unit. My father will know how to retrieve it. You must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. There is a little static and the transmission is cut short. Old Ben leans back and scratches his head. He silently puffs on a tarnished chrome water pipe. Luke has stars in his eyes. You must learn the ways of the Force if you're to come with me to Alderaan. Luke laughs. Alderaan? I'm not going to Alderaan. I've got to go home. It's late. I'm in for it as it is. I need your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing. I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire. I hate it. But there's nothing I can do about it right now. It's such a long way from here. That's your uncle talking. Ah, God, my uncle. How am I going to explain this? Learn about the Force, Luke. Look, I can take you as far as Anchorhead. You can get a transport there to Mos Eisley or wherever you're going. You must do what you feel is right, of course. In space, an Imperial Star Destroyer heads toward the evil planet-like battle station, the Death Star. 8 Imperial senators and generals sit around a black conference table. Imperial stormtroopers stand guard around the room. Commander Tag, a young, slimy-looking general, is speaking. Until this battle station is fully operational, we are vulnerable. The Rebel Alliance is too well equipped. They are more dangerous than you realize. The bitter Admiral Mahdi twists nervously in his chair. Dangerous to your star fleet, Commander, not to this battle station. The rebellion will continue to gain support in the Imperial Senate as long as... Suddenly all heads turn as Commander Tag's speech is cut short, and Grand Moff Tarkin, governor of the Imperial Outland regions, enters. He's followed by his powerful ally, the Sith Lord Darth Vader. All of the generals stand and bow before the thin, evil-looking governor as he takes his place at the head of the table. The Dark Lord stands behind him. The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. I've just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the Council permanently. The last remnants of the old Republic have been swept away. That's impossible. How will the Emperor maintain control without the bureaucracy? The regional governors now have direct control over the territories. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station. And what of the rebellion? If the rebels have obtained a complete technical readout of this station, it is possible, however unlikely, that they might find a weakness and exploit it. The plans you refer to will soon be back in our hands. Any attack made by the rebels against this station would be a useless gesture, no matter what technical data they've obtained. This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it. Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. Don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader. Your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes, or given you clairvoyance enough to find the rebels' hidden fort. Suddenly, Mahdi chokes and starts to turn blue under Vader's spell. I find your lack of faith disturbing. Enough of this. Vader, release him. As you wish. This bickering is pointless. Lord Vader will provide us with the location of the rebel fortress by the time this station is operational. We will then crush the rebellion with one swift stroke. The speeder stops before what remains of the huge Jawa sandcrawler. Luke and Ben walk among the smoldering rubble and scattered bodies. It looks like the Sand People did this all right. Look, here are the gaffy sticks and bantha tracks. It's just, I've never heard of them hitting anything this big before. Ben is crouching in the sand, studying the tracks. They didn't. But we are meant to think they did. These tracks are side by side. Sand People always ride single file to hide their numbers. These are the same Jawas that sold us R2 and 3PO. And these blast points, too accurate for sand people. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise. Why would Imperial troops want to slaughter Jawas? Luke looks back at the speeder, where R2 and 3PO are inspecting the dead Jawas, and put 2 and 2 together. If they traced the robots here, they may have learned who they sold them to, and that would lead them home. Luke reaches a sudden, horrible realization, and then races for the speeder and jumps in. Wait, Luke, it's too dangerous! Luke races off, leaving Ben and the 2 robots alone with the burning sandcrawler. Luke races across the wasteland in his battered land speeder. The speeder roars up to the burning homestead. Luke jumps out and runs to the smoking holes that were once his home. Debris is scattered everywhere, and it looks as if a great battle has taken place. Uncle Owen! Aunt Beru! Uncle Owen! Luke stumbles around in a daze, looking for his aunt and uncle. Suddenly he comes upon their smoldering remains. He's stunned and cannot speak. Hate replaces fear, and a new resolve comes over him. In space, Imperial TIE fighters race toward the Death Star. 2 stormtroopers open an electronic cell door and allow several Imperial guards to enter. Princess Leia's face is filled with defiance, which slowly gives way to fear, as a giant black torture robot enters, followed by Darth Vader. And now, Your Highness, we will discuss the location of your hidden rebel base. The torture robot gives off a steady beeping sound as it approaches Princess Leia and extends one of its mechanical arms bearing a large hypodermic needle. The door slides shut, and the long cell block hallway appears peaceful. The muffled screams of the rebel princess are barely heard. There's a large bonfire of Jawa bodies blazing in front of the sandcrawler, as Ben and the robots finish burning the dead. Luke drives up in the speeder, and Ben walks over to him. There's nothing you could have done, Luke. Had you been there, you would have been killed, too, and the droids would be in the hands of the Empire. I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing here for me now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. The land speeder with Luke, R2, 3PO, and Ben in it zooms across the desert. The speeder stops on a bluff overlooking the spaceport at Mos Eisley. It's a haphazard array of low gray concrete structures and semi-domes. A harsh gale blows across the stark canyon floor. Luke adjusts his goggles and walks to the edge of the craggy bluff where Ben is standing. Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. Ben looks over at Luke, who gives the old Jedi a determined smile. The speeder is stopped on a crowded street by several combat-hardened stormtroopers who look over the 2 robots. A trooper questions Luke. How long have you had these droids? About 3 or 4 seasons. They're for sale if you want them. Let me see your identification. Luke becomes very nervous as he fumbles to find his ID, while Ben speaks to the trooper in a very controlled voice. You don't need to see his identification. We don't need to see his identification. These are not the droids you're looking for. These are not the droids we're looking for. He can go about his business. He can go about your business. To Luke. Move along. Move along, move along. The speeder pulls up in front of a rundown blockhouse cantina on the outskirts of the spaceport. Various strange forms of transport, including several unusual beasts of burden, are parked outside of the bar. A Jawa runs up and begins to fondle the speeder. I can't abide these Jawas. Disgusting creatures. As Luke gets out of the speeder, he tries to shoo the Jawa away. Go on, go on. I can't understand how we got by those troopers. I thought we were dead. The Force can have a strong influence on the weak-minded. You will find it a powerful ally. Do you really think we're going to find a pilot here that'll take us to Alderaan? Well, most of the best freighter pilots can be found here. Only watch your step. This place can be a little rough. I'm ready for anything. Come along, R2. The young adventurer and his 2 mechanical servants follow Ben Kenobi into the smoke-filled cantina. The murky, moldy den is filled with a startling array of weird and exotic alien creatures and monsters at the long metallic bar. At first, the sight is horrifying. One-eyed, thousand-eyed, slimy, furry, scaly, tentacled, and clawed creatures huddle over drinks. Ben moves to an empty spot at the bar near a group of repulsive, but human, scum. A huge, rough-looking bartender stops Luke and the robots. We don't serve their kind here. Luke, still recovering from the shock of seeing so many outlandish creatures, doesn't quite catch the bartender's drift. What? You're droids. They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here. Luke looks at old Ben, who's busy talking with one of the galactic pirates. He notices several of the gruesome creatures along the bar are giving him a very unfriendly glare. Luke pats 3PO on the shoulder. Listen, why don't you wait out by the speeder? We don't want any trouble. I heartily agree with you, sir. 3PO and his stubby partner go outside, and most of the creatures at the bar go back to their drinks. Ben is standing next to Chewbacca, an 8-foot-tall, savage-looking creature, resembling a huge gray bush baby monkey with fierce, baboon-like fangs. His large blue eyes dominate a fur-covered face and soften his otherwise awesome appearance. Over his matted, furry body, he wears 2 chrome bandoliers and little else. He's a 200-year-old Wookiee, and a sight to behold. Ben speaks to the Wookiee, pointing to Luke several times during his conversation, and the large creature suddenly lets out a horrifying laugh. Luke is more than a little bit disconcerted, and pretends not to hear the conversation between Ben and the giant Wookiee. Luke is terrified, but tries not to show it. He quietly sips his drink, looking over the crowd for a more sympathetic ear, or whatever. A large, multiple-eyed creature gives Luke a rough shove. Nicola Dagui will do good. The hideous freak is obviously drunk. Luke tries to ignore the creature and turns back to his drink. A short, grubby human and an even taller, rodent-like beast join the belligerent monstrosity. He doesn't like you. I'm sorry. I don't like you either. The big creature is getting agitated and yells out some unintelligible gibberish at the now rather nervous young adventurer. Don't insult us. You just watch yourself. We're wanted men. I have a death sentence in 12 systems. I'll be careful then. You'll be dead. The rodent lets out a loud grunt and everything at the bar moves away. Luke tries to remain cool, but it isn't easy. His 3 adversaries ready their weapons. Old Ben moves in behind Luke. This little one isn't worth the effort. Come, let me buy you something. A powerful blow from the unpleasant creature sends the young would-be Jedi sailing across the room, crashing through tables and breaking a large jug filled with a foul-looking liquid. With a blood-curdling shriek, the monster draws a wicked chrome laser pistol from his belt and levels it at old Ben. The bartender panics. No blasters! No blasters! With astounding agility, Old Ben's laser sword sparks to life. In a flash, an arm lies on the floor. The rodent is cut in two, and the giant multiple-eyed creature lies doubled, cut from chin to groin. Ben carefully and precisely turns off his laser sword and replaces it on his utility belt. Luke, shaking and totally amazed at the old man's abilities, attempts to stand. The entire fight has lasted only a matter of seconds. The cantina goes back to normal, although Ben is given a respectable amount of room at the bar. Luke, rubbing his bruised head, approaches the old man with new awe. Ben points to the Wookiee. This is Chewbacca. He's first mate on a ship that might suit our needs. 3PO paces in front of the cantina as R2 carries on an electronic conversation with another little red astro droid. A creature comes out of the cantina and approaches two stormtroopers in the street. I don't like the look of this. Strange creatures play exotic big band music on odd-looking instruments as Luke, still giddy, downs a fresh drink and follows Ben and Chewbacca to a booth where Han Solo is sitting. Han is a tough, roguish star pilot about 30 years old, a mercenary on a starship. He is simple, sentimental, and cocksure. Han Solo, I'm captain of Millennium Falcon. Chewie here tells me you're looking for passage to the Alderaan system. Yes, indeed, if it's a fast ship. Fast ship? You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? Should I have? It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Ben reacts to Solo's stupid attempt to impress them with obvious misinformation. I've outrun Imperial starships, not the local bulk cruisers, mind you. I'm talking about the big Corellian ships now. She's fast enough for you, old man. What's the cargo? Only passengers, myself, the boy, 2 droids, and no questions asked. What is it, some kind of local trouble? Let's just say we'd like to avoid any Imperial entanglements. Well, that's the trick, isn't it? And it's going to cost you something extra. 10,000 in advance. 10,000? We can almost buy our own ship for that. But who's going to fly it, kid? You? You bet I could. I'm not such a bad pilot myself. We don't have to sit here and listen to... We haven't that much with us, but we could pay you 2,000 now, plus 15 when we reach Alderaan. 17, huh? Han ponders this for a few moments. Okay, you guys got yourself a ship. We'll leave as soon as you're ready. Docking Bay 94. 94. Looks like somebody's beginning to take an interest in your handiwork. Ben and Luke turn around to see 4 Imperial stormtroopers looking at the dead bodies and asking the bartenders some questions. The bartender points to the booth. All right, we'll check it out. The stormtroopers look over at the booth, but Luke and Ben are gone. The bartender shrugs his shoulders in puzzlement. 17,000! Those guys must be really desperate. This could really save my neck. Get back to the ship and get her ready. On a Mos Eisley street. You'll have to sell your speeder. That's okay. I'm never coming back to this planet again. As Han is about to leave the cantina, Greedo, a slimy green-faced alien with a short trunk nose, pokes a gun in his side. The creature speaks in a foreign tongue, translated into English subtitles. Going somewhere, Solo? Yes, Greedo, as a matter of fact, I was just going to see your boss. Tell Jabba that I've got his money. Han sits down and the alien sits across from him, holding the gun on him. It's too late. You should have paid him when you had the chance. Jabba's put a price on your head, so large that every bounty hunter in the galaxy will be looking for you. I'm lucky I found you first. Yeah, but this time I got the money. If you give it to me, I might forget I found you. I don't have it with me. Tell Jabba. Jabba's through with you. He has no time for smugglers who drop their shipments at the first sign of an Imperial cruiser. Even I get boarded sometimes. Do you think I had a choice? Han Solo reaches for his gun under the table. You can tell that to Jabba. He might only take your ship. Over my dead body. That's the idea. I've been looking forward to killing you for a long time. Yes, I'll bet you have. Suddenly, the slimy alien disappears in a blinding flash of light. Han pulls his smoking gun from beneath the table, as the other patrons look in bemused amazement. Han gets up and starts out of the cantina, flipping the bartender some coins as he leaves. Sorry about the mess. Several TIE fighters in space approach the Death Star. Her resistance to the mind probe is considerable. It will be some time before we can extract any information from her. An Imperial officer interrupts the meeting. The final checkout is complete. All systems are operational. What course shall we set? Perhaps she would respond to an alternative form of persuasion. What do you mean? I think it's time we demonstrate the full power of this station. To the soldier. Set your course for Princess Leia's home planet of Alderaan. With pleasure. 4 heavily armed stormtroopers move menacingly along a narrow slum alleyway, crowded with darkly clad creatures hawking exotic goods in the dingy little stalls. Men, monsters, and robots crouched in the waste-filled doorways, whispering and hiding from the hot winds. Lock the door, R2. One of the troopers checks a tightly locked door and moves on down the alleyway. The door slides open a crack and 3PO peeks out. R2 is barely visible in the background. All right, check that side of the street. It's secure. Move on to the next door. The door opens and 3PO moves into the doorway. I would much rather have gone with Master Luke than stay here with you. I don't know what all the trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. R2 makes beeping sounds. You watch your language! Ben and Luke are standing in a sleazy used speeder lot, talking with a tall, grotesque, insect-like used speeder dealer. Strange exotic bodies and spindly-legged beasts pass by as the insect concludes the sale by giving Luke some coins. He says it's the best he can do. Since the XP-38 came out, they're just not in demand. It will be enough. Ben and Luke leave the speeder lot and walk down the dusty alleyway past a small robot herding a bunch of anteater-like creatures. Luke turns and gives one last forlorn look at his faithful speeder as he rounds the corner. A darkly clad creature moves out of the shadows as they pass and watches them as they disappear down the alley. If the ship is as fast as he's boasting, we ought to do well. In Docking Bay 94, Jabba the Hutt and a half-dozen grisly alien pirates and purple creatures stand in the middle of the docking bay. Jabba is the grossest of the slavering hulks, and his scarred face is a grim testimonial to his prowess as a vicious killer. He's a fat, slug-like creature with eyes on extended feelers and a huge, ugly mouth. Come on out, Solo! A voice from directly behind the pirates startles them, and they turn around to see Han Solo and the giant Wookiee, Chewbacca, standing behind them with no weapons in sight. I've been waiting for you, Jabba. I expected you would be. I'm not the type to run. Jabba, fatherly smooth. Han, my boy, there are times when you disappoint me. Why haven't you paid me? And why did you have to fry poor Greedo like that? After all we've been through together. You sent Greedo to blast me. Jabba mocks surprise. Han, why, you're the best smuggler in the business. You're too valuable to fry. He was only relaying my concern at your delay. He wasn't going to blast you. I think he thought he was. Next time, don't send one of your twerps. If you've got something to say to me, come see me yourself. Han, if only you hadn't had to dump that shipment of spice. You understand, I just can't make an exception. Where would I be if every pilot who smuggled for me dumped their shipment at the first sign of an Imperial starship? It's not good business. You know, even I get boarded sometimes, Jabba. I had no choice. But I've got a charter now, and I can pay you back plus a little extra. I just need some more time. Jabba to his men. Put your blasters away. Han, my boy, I'm only doing this because you're the best and I need you. So for an extra, say 20%, I'll give you a little more time. But this is it. If you disappoint me again, I'll put a price on your head so large you won't be able to go near a civilized system for the rest of your short life. Jabba, I'll pay you because it's my pleasure. Chewbacca waits restlessly at the entrance to the docking bay 94. Ben, Luke, and the robots make their way up the street. Chewbacca jabbers excitedly and signals for them to hurry. The darkly clad creature has followed them from the speeder lot. He stops in a nearby doorway and speaks into a small transmitter. Chewbacca leads the group into a giant dirt pile that is docking bay 94. Resting in the middle of the huge hole is a large, round, beat-up, pieced-together hunk of junk that could only loosely be called a starship. What a piece of junk! The tall figure of Han Solo comes down the boarding ramp. She'll make 0.5 beyond the speed of light. She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid. I've added some special modifications myself. Luke scratches his head. It's obvious he isn't sure about all this. Chewbacca rushes up the ramp and urges the others to follow. We're a little rushed, so if you'll hurry aboard, we'll get out of here. The group rushes up the gangplank, passing a grinning Han Solo. Chewbacca settles into the pilot's chair and starts the mighty engines of the starship. Luke, Ben, 3PO, and R2 move toward the Millennium Falcon, passing Solo. Hello, sir. 8 Imperial stormtroopers rush up to the darkly clad creature. Which way? The darkly clad creature points to the door of the docking bay. All right, men, load your weapons. The troops hold their guns at the ready and charge down the docking bay entrance. Stop that ship! Han Solo looks up and sees the Imperial stormtroopers rushing into the docking bay. Several of the troopers fire at Han as he ducks into the spaceship. Blast him! Han draws his laser pistol and pops off a couple of shots, which force the stormtroopers to dive for safety. The pirate ship's engines whine as Han hits the release button that slams the overhead entry shut. Chewie, get us out of here! The group straps in for takeoff. Oh my! I'd forgotten how much I hate space travel. The half-dozen stormtroopers at a checkpoint hear the general alarm and look to the sky as the huge starship rises above the dingy slum dwellings and quickly disappears into the morning sky. Han climbs into the pilot's chair next to Chewbacca, who chatters away as he points to something on the radar scope. The Corellian pirate ship zooms from Tatooine into space. Han frantically types information into the ship's computer. Little R2 appears momentarily at the cockpit doorway and makes a few beeping remarks and then scurries away. It looks like an Imperial cruiser. Our passengers must be hotter than I thought. Try to hold them off. Angle the deflector shield while I make the calculations for a jump to light speed. The Millennium Falcon pirate ship races away from the yellow planet Tatooine. It's followed by 2 huge Imperial star destroyers. Over the shoulders of Chewbacca and Han, we can see the galaxy spread before them. Luke and Ben make their way into the cramped cockpit, where Han continues his calculation. "Stay sharp. There are 2 more coming in. They're going to try to cut us off." "Why don't you outrun them? I thought you said this thing was fast." "Watch your mouth, kid, or you're going to find yourself floating home. You'll be safe enough once we make the jump to hyperspace. Besides, I know a few maneuvers. We'll lose 'em." Imperial cruisers fire at the pirate ship. The ship stutters as an explosion flashes outside the window. "Here's where the fun begins." "How long before we can make the jump to light speed?" "It'll take a few moments to get the coordinates from the Navi computer." The ship begins to rock violently as lasers hit it. "Are you kidding? At the rate they're gaining?" "Traveling through hyperspace isn't like dusting crops, boy. Without precise calculations, we could fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova. And that'd end your trip real quick, wouldn't it?" The ship is now constantly battered with laser fire as a red warning light begins to flash. "What's that flashing?" "We're losing our deflector shield. Go strap yourself in. I'm going to make the jump to light speed." The galaxy brightens and they move faster, almost as if crashing a barrier. Stars become streaks as the pirate ship makes the jump to hyperspace. The Millennium Falcon zooms into infinity in less than a second. Alderaan looms behind the Death Star battle station. Admiral Motti enters the quiet control room and bows before Governor Tarkin, who stands before the huge wall screen displaying a small green planet. "We've entered the Alderaan system." Vader and 2 stormtroopers enter with Princess Leia. Her hands are bound. "Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought aboard." "Charming to the last. You don't know how hard I've found it signing the order to terminate your life." "I'm surprised you had the courage to take the responsibility yourself." "Princess Leia, before your execution, I would like you to be my guest at a ceremony that will make this battle station operational. No star system will dare oppose the Emperor now." "The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers." "Not after we demonstrate the power of this station. In a way, you have determined the choice of the planet that'll be destroyed first. Since you are reluctant to provide us with the location of the rebel base, I have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan." "No! Alderaan is peaceful. We have no weapons. You can't possibly." "You would prefer another target? A military target? Then name the system." Tarkin waves menacingly toward Leia. "I grow tired of asking this, so it'll be the last time. Where is the rebel base?" Leia overhears an intercom voice announcing the approach to Alderaan. She softly says, "Dantooine." Leia lowers her head. "They're on Dantooine." "There, you see, Lord Vader? She can be reasonable." Addressing Motti. "Continue with the operation. You may fire when ready." "What?" "You're far too trusting. Dantooine is too remote to make an effective demonstration. But don't worry. We'll deal with your rebel friends soon enough." "No!" "Commence primary ignition." A button is pressed which switches on a panel of lights. A hooded Imperial soldier reaches overhead and pulls a lever. Another lever is pulled. Vader reaches for still another lever, and a bank of lights on a panel and wall light up. A huge beam of light emanates from within a cone-shaped area and diverges into a single laser beam out toward Alderaan. The small green planet of Alderaan is blown into space dust. In the central hold area of the Millennium Falcon, Ben watches Luke practice the lightsaber with a small seeker robot. Ben suddenly turns away and sits down. He falters, seeming almost faint. "Are you all right? What's wrong?" "I felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced. I fear something terrible has happened." Ben rubs his forehead. He seems to drift into a trance. Then he fixes his gaze on Luke. "You'd better get on with your exercises." Han Solo enters the room. "Well, you can forget your troubles with those Imperial slugs. I told you I'd outrun them." Luke is once again practicing with the lightsaber. "Don't everyone thank me at once." 3PO watches Chewbacca and R2, who are engrossed in a game. Three-dimensional holographic figures move along a chest-tight board. "Anyway, we should be in Alderaan in about 0200 hours. Chewbacca and the two robots sit around the lighted table, covered with small holographic monsters. Each side of the table has a small computer monitor embedded in it. Chewbacca seems very pleased with himself as he rests his lanky, fur-covered arms over his head. "Now be careful, R2. R2 immediately reaches up and taps the computer with his stubby claw hand, causing one of the holographic creatures to walk into a new square. A sudden frown crosses Chewbacca's face, and he begins yelling gibberish at the tiny robot. 3PO intercedes on behalf of his small companion and begins to argue with the huge Wookiee. "He made a fair move. Screaming about it won't help you." Han interrupts. "Let him have it. It's not wise to upset a Wookiee." "But sir, nobody worries about upsetting a droid." "That's because droids won't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that." "I see your point, sir. I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win." Luke stands in the middle of the small hold area. He seems frozen in place. A humming lightsaber is held high over his head. Ben watches him from the corner, studying his movements. Han watches with a bit of smugness. "Remember, a Jedi can feel the Force flowing through him." "You mean it controls your actions?" "Partially, but it also obeys your command." Suspended at eye level about 10 feet in front of Luke, a seeker, chrome baseball-like robot covered with antennae hovers slowly in a wide arc. The ball floats to one side of the youth and then the other. Suddenly it makes a lightning-swift lunge and stops within a few feet of Luke's face. Luke doesn't move and the ball backs off. It slowly moves behind the boy, then makes another quick lunge, this time emitting a blood-red laser beam as it attacks. It hits Luke in the leg, causing him to tumble over. Han lets loose with a burst of laughter. "Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid." "You don't believe in the Force, do you?" "Kid, I've flown from one side of the galaxy to the other. I've seen a whole lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe that there's one all-powerful force controlling everything. There is no mystical energy field that controls my destiny." Ben smiles quietly. "It's all a lot of simple tricks and nonsense." "I suggest you try it again, Luke." Ben places a large helmet on Luke's head, which covers his eyes. "This time, let go your conscious self and act on instinct." Luke laughs. "With the blast shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight?" "Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them." Han skeptically shakes his head as Ben throws the seeker into the air. The ball shoots straight up in the air and then drops like a rock. Luke swings the lightsaber around blindly, missing the seeker, which fires off a laser bolt which hits Luke square on the seat of the pants. He lets out a painful yell and attempts to hit the Seeker. "Stretch out with your feelings." Luke stands in one place, seemingly frozen. The Seeker makes a dive at Luke, and incredibly, he manages to deflect the bolt. The ball ceases to fire and moves back to its original position. "You see, you can do it. I call it luck. In my experience, there's no such thing as luck. Look, going good against remotes is one thing. Going good against living, that's something else." Solo notices a small light flashing on the far side of the control panel. "Looks like we're coming up on Alderaan." Han and Chewbacca head back to the cockpit. "You know, I did feel something. I could almost see the remote." "That's good. You have taken your first step into a larger world." In a Death Star conference room, Officer Cass stands before Governor Tarkin and the evil Dark Lord Darth Vader. "Yes? Our scout ships have reached Dantooine. They found the remains of a rebel base, but they estimate it has been deserted for some time. They are now conducting an extensive search of the surrounding systems." "She lied to us! She lied to us!" "I told you she would never consciously betray the rebellion. Terminate her, immediately." The Millennium Falcon is coming out of hyperspace. A strange, surreal light show surrounds the ship. "Stand by, Chewie. Here we go. Cut in the sublight engines." Han pulls back on a control lever. Outside the cockpit window, stars begin streaking past and seem to decrease in speed, then stop. Suddenly, the starship begins to shudder and violently shake about. Asteroids begin to race toward them, battering the sides of the ship. "What the—" We've come out of hyperspace into a meteor shower. Some kind of asteroid collision. It's not on any of the charts. The Wookiee flips off several controls and seems very cool in the emergency. Luke makes his way into the bouncing cockpit. "What's going on?" "Our position is correct, except no Alderaan." "What do you mean? Where is it?" "That's what I'm trying to tell you, kid. It ain't there. It's been totally blown away." "What? How?" Ben moves into the cockpit, behind Luke as the ship begins to settle down. "Destroyed by the Empire." "The entire Starfleet couldn't destroy an entire planet. It would take 1,000 ships with more firepower than I've—" A signal starts flashing on the control panel, and a muffled alarm starts humming. "There's another ship coming in." "Maybe they know what happened." "It's an Imperial fighter." Chewbacca barks his concern. A huge explosion bursts outside the cockpit window, shaking the ship violently. A tiny finned Imperial TIE fighter races past the cockpit window. "It followed us!" "No, it's a short-range fighter." "There aren't any bases around here. Where did it come from?" The fighter races past the Corellian spaceship. "It sure is leaving in a big hurry. If they identify us, we're in big trouble." "Not if I can help it." "Chewie, jam its transmissions." "It'd be as well to let it go. It's too far out of range." "Not for long." The pirate ship zooms over the camera and away into the vastness of space after the Imperial TIE fighter. The tension mounts as the pirate ship gains on the tiny fighter. In the distance, one of the stars becomes brighter until it's obvious that the TIE ship is heading right for it. Ben stands behind Chewbacca. A fighter that size couldn't get this deep into space on its own. It must have gotten lost, been part of a convoy or something. "Well, he ain't gonna be around long enough to tell anyone about us." The TIE fighter is losing ground to the larger pirate ship as they race toward camera and disappear overhead. The distant star can be distinguished as a small moon or planet. "Look at him! He's heading for that small moon. I think I can get him before he gets there. He's almost in range. The small moon begins to take on the appearance of a monstrous spherical battle station. That's no moon. It's a space station. It's too big to be a space station. I have a very bad feeling about this. Yeah, I think you're right. Full reverse. Chewie, lock in the auxiliary power. The pirate ship shudders as the TIE fighter accelerates away toward the gargantuan battle station. Why are we still moving towards it? We're caught in a tractor beam. It's pulling us in. But there's got to be something you can do. There's nothing I can do about it, kid. I'm in full power. I'm going to have to shut down. But they're not going to get me without a fight. Ben Kenobi puts a hand on his shoulder. You can't win. But there are alternatives to fighting. As the battered pirate ship is towed closer to the awesome metal moon, the immense size of the massive battle station becomes staggering. Running along the equator of the gigantic sphere is a mile-high band of huge docking ports into which the helpless pirate ship is dragged. The helpless Millennium Falcon is pulled past a docking port control room and a huge laser turret cannon. A voice-over Death Star intercom. Clear Bay 23-7. We are opening the magnetic field. The pirate ship is pulled in through port doors of the Death Star, coming to rest in a huge hangar. 30 stormtroopers stand at attention in a central assembly area. To your stations, to another officer. Come with me. The stormtroopers run to their posts. A line of stormtroopers march toward the pirate ship in readiness to board it, while other troopers stand with weapons ready to fire. Close all outboard shields. Close all outboard shields. Tarkin pushes a button and responds to the intercom buzz. Yes? We've captured a freighter entering the remains of the Alderaan system. Its markings match those of the ship that blasted its way out of Mos Eisley. They must be trying to return the stolen plans to the princess. She may yet be of some use to us. Vader and the commander approach the troops as an officer and several heavily armed troops exit the spacecraft. Over intercom. Unlock 157 and 9. Release charges. There's no one on board, sir. According to the log, the crew abandoned ship right after takeoff. It must be a decoy, sir. Several of the escape pods have been jettisoned. Did you find any droids? No, sir. If there were any on board, they must have also been jettisoned. Send a scanning crew on board. I want every part of this ship checked. Yes, sir. I sense something. A presence I have not felt since... Vader turns quickly and exits the hangar. Get me a scanning crew in here on the double. I want every part of this ship checked. A trooper runs through the hallway, headed for the exit. In a few moments, all is quiet. The muffled sounds of a distant officer giving orders finally fade. 2 floor panels suddenly pop up, revealing Han Solo and Luke. Ben Kenobi sticks his head out of the 3rd locker. Boy, it's lucky you had these compartments. I use them for smuggling. I never thought I'd be smuggling myself in them. This is ridiculous. Even if I could take off, I'd never get past the tractor beam. Leave that to me. Damn fool. I knew you were going to say that. Who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? Han shakes his head, muttering to himself. Chewbacca agrees. The crewmen carry a heavy box on board the ship, past the 2 stormtroopers guarding either side of the ramp. The ship's all yours. If the scanners pick up anything, report it immediately. All right, let's go. The crewmen enter the spaceship, and a loud crashing sound is followed by a voice calling to the guards below. Hey down there, Could you give us a hand with this?" The stormtroopers enter the ship, and a quick round of gunfire is heard. In a very small command office near the entrance to the pirate ship, a gantry officer looks out his window and notices the guards are missing. He speaks into the comlink. "TX-412, why aren't you at your post? TX-412, do you copy?" A stormtrooper comes down the ramp of the pirate ship and waves to the gantry officer, pointing to his ear indicating his comlink is not working. The gantry officer shakes his head in disgust and heads for the door, giving his aide an annoyed look. "Take over. We got a bad transmitter. I'll see what I can do." As the officer approaches the door, it slides open, revealing the towering Chewbacca. The gantry officer, in a momentary state of shock, tumbles backward. With a bone-chilling howl, the giant Wookiee flattens the officer with one blow. The aide immediately reaches for his pistol, but is blasted by Han, dressed as an Imperial stormtrooper. Ben and the robot enters the room quickly, followed by Luke, also dressed as a stormtrooper. Luke quickly removes his helmet. "You know, between his howling and your blasting everything in sight, it's a wonder the whole station doesn't know we're here." "Bring 'em on. I prefer a straight fight to all this sneaking around." "We found the computer outlet, sir." Ben feeds some information into the computer, and a map of the city appears on the monitor. He begins to inspect it carefully. 3PO and R2 look over the control panel. R2 finds something that makes him whistle wildly. "Plug in. He should be able to interpret the entire Imperial computer network." R2 punches his claw arm into the computer's socket, and the vast Imperial brain network comes to life, feeding information to the little robot. After a few moments, he beeps something. "He says he's found the main computer to power the tractor beam that's holding the ship here. He'll try to make the precise location appear on the monitor." The computer monitor flashes readouts. The tractor beam is coupled to the main reactor in several locations. A power loss at one of those terminals will allow the ship to leave. Ben studies the data on the monitor readout. "I don't think you boys can help. I must go alone." "Whatever you say. I've done more than I bargained for on this trip already." "I want to go with you." "Be patient, Luke. Stay and watch over the droids." "But he can—" "They must be delivered safely, or other star systems will suffer the same fate as Alderaan. Your destiny lies along a different path than mine. The Force will be with you. Always." Ben adjusts the lightsaber on his belt and silently steps out of the command office and then disappears down a long gray hallway. Chewbacca barks a comment, and Han shakes his head in agreement. "Boy, you said it, Chewie." Han looks at Luke. "Where did you dig up that old fossil?" "Ben is a great man." "Yeah, great at getting us into trouble." "I didn't hear you giving any ideas." "Well, anything would be better than just hanging around waiting for him to pick us up." "Who do you think—" Suddenly R2 begins to whistle and beep a blue streak. Luke goes over to him. "What is it?" "I'm afraid I'm not quite sure, sir. He says I found her and keeps repeating she's here." "Well, who? Who has he found?" R2 whistles a frantic reply. "Princess Leia." "The princess? She's here?" "Princess? What's going on?" "Level 5, detention block AA-23. I'm afraid she's scheduled to be terminated." "Oh no, we've got to do something." "What are you talking about?" "The droid belongs to her. She's the one in the message. We've got to help her." "Now look, don't get any funny ideas. The old man wants us to wait right here." "But he didn't know she was here. Look, will you just find a way back into the detention block?" "I'm not going anywhere." "They're going to execute her. Look, a few minutes ago you said you didn't want to just wait here to be captured. Now all you want to do is stay." Marching into the detention area is not what I had in mind. But they're going to kill her. Better her than me. She's rich. Chewbacca growls. Rich? Yes, rich and powerful. Listen, if you were to rescue her, the reward would be... What? Well, more wealth than you can imagine. I don't know, I can imagine quite a bit. You'll get it. I better. You will. All right, kid. You better be right about this. Han looks at Chewie, who grunts a short grunt. All right. What's your plan? 3PO, hand me those binders there, will you? Luke moves toward Chewbacca with electronic cuffs. Okay, now I'm gonna put these on you. Chewie lets out a hideous growl. Okay, Han, you put these on. Luke sheepishly hands the binders to Han. Don't worry, Chewie. I think I know what he has in mind. The Wookiee has a worried and frightened look on his face as Han binds him with the electronic cuffs. Master Luke, sir, pardon me for asking, but, what should R2 and I do if we're discovered here? Lock the door. And hope they don't have blasters. That isn't very reassuring. Luke and Han put on their armored stormtrooper helmets and start off into the giant Imperial Death Star. Han and Luke try to look inconspicuous in their armored suits as they wait for a vacuum elevator to arrive. Troops, bureaucrats, and robots bustle about, ignoring the trio completely. Only a few give the giant Wookiee a curious glance. Finally, a small elevator arrives and the trio enters. I can't see a thing in this helmet. A bureaucrat races to get aboard also, but is signaled away by Han. The door to the pod-like vehicle slides closed, and the elevator car takes off through a vacuum tube. Several Imperial officers walk through the wide main passageway. They pass several stormtroopers and a robot similar to 3PO, but with an insect face. At the far end of the hallway, a passing flash of Ben Kenobi appears, then disappears down a small hallway. His appearance is so fleeting that it's hard to tell if he is real or just an illusion. No one in the hallway seems to notice him. Luke and Han step forward to exit the elevator, but the door slides open behind them. The giant Wookiee and his two guards enter the old gray security station. Guards and laser gates are everywhere. Han whispers to Luke under his breath, "This is not going to work." "Why didn't you say so before?" "I did say so before." The elevator doors open. A tall, grim-looking officer approaches the trio. "Where are you taking this thing?" Chewie growls a bit, but Han nudges him to shut up. "Prisoner transfer from Block 1138. I wasn't notified. I'll have to clear it." The officer goes back to his console and begins to punch in the information. There are only 3 other troopers in the area. Luke and Han survey the situation, checking all the alarms, laser gates, and camera eyes. Luke unfastens one of Chewbacca's electronic cuffs and shrugs to Luke. Suddenly, Chewbacca throws up his hands and lets out with one of his ear-piercing howls. He grabs Han's laser rifle. "Look out! He's loose! He's going to pull us all apart! Go get him!" The startled guards are momentarily dumbfounded. Luke and Han have already pulled out their laser pistols and are blasting away at the terrified Wookiee. Their barrage of laser fire misses Chewbacca, but hits the camera eyes, the laser gate controls, and the Imperial guards. The officer is the last of the guards to fall under the laser fire, just as he's about to push the alarm system. Han rushes to the comlink system, which is screeching questions about what's going on. He quickly checks the computer readout. "We've got to find out which cell this princess of yours is in. Here it is, cell 2187. You go get her, I'll hold them here." Luke races down one of the cell corridors. Han speaks into the buzzing comlink, sounding official. "Everything is under control. Situation normal." "What happened?" Han getting nervous. We had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly alright now. We're fine. Everything's fine. Now, thank you. How are you? We're sending a squad up. Negative. We had a reactor leak here now. Give us a few minutes to lock it down. Large leak, very dangerous. Who is this? What is your operating number? Han blasts the comlink, and it explodes. Boring conversation anyway. Yelling down the hall. Luke, we're gonna have company! Luke stops in front of one of the cells and blasts the door away with a laser pistol. When the smoke clears, Luke sees the dazzling young princess senator. She had been sleeping, and is now looking at him with an uncomprehending look on her face. Luke is stunned by her incredible beauty, and stands staring at her with his mouth hanging open. Finally, she says, Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? Luke takes off his helmet, coming out of it. What? Oh, the uniform. I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. You're who? I'm here to rescue you. I've got your R2 unit. I'm here with Ben Kenobi. Ben Kenobi is here? Where is he? Come on. Darth Vader paces the room as Governor Tarkin sits at the far end of the conference table. He is here. Obi-Wan Kenobi? What makes you think so? A tremor in the Force. The last time I felt it was in the presence of my old master. Surely he must be dead by now. Don't underestimate the power of the Force. The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out of the universe. You, my friend, is all that's left of their religion. There is a quiet buzz on the comlink. Yes? Governor Tarkin, we have an emergency alert in detention block AA-23. The princess. Put all sections on alert. Obi-Wan is here. The Force is with him. If you're right, he must not be allowed to escape. Escape is not his plan. I must face him alone. In the detention area hallway, an ominous buzzing sound is heard on the other side of the elevator door. Chewie! Chewbacca responds with a growling noise. Get behind me! Get behind me! A series of explosions knocks a hole in the elevator door, through which several Imperial troops begin to emerge. Han and Chewie fire laser pistols at them through the smoke and flame. They turn and run down the cell hallway, meeting up with Luke and Leia, rushing toward them. Can't get out that way. Looks like you managed to cut off our only escape route. Han sarcastically. Maybe you'd like it back in your cell, Your Highness. Luke takes a small comlink transmitter from his belt as they continue to exchange fire with stormtroopers making their way down the corridor. C-3PO! C-3PO! 3PO over the comlink. Yes, sir. We've been cut off. Are there any other ways out of the cell bay? What was that? I didn't copy. 3PO paces the control center as little R2 beeps and whistles a blue streak. 3PO yells into the small comlink transmitter. I said, all systems have been alerted to your presence, sir. The main entrance seems to be the only way in or out. All other information on your level is restricted. Someone begins banging on the door. Open up in there! Oh no! Luke and Leia crouch together in an alcove for protection as they continue to exchange fire with troops. Han and Chewbacca are barely able to keep the stormtroopers at bay at the far end of the hallway. The laser fire is very intense, and smoke fills the narrow cell corridor. There isn't any other way out. I can't hold them off forever, now what? This is some rescue. When you came in here, didn't you have a plan for getting out? Han points to Luke. He's the brain, sweetheart. Luke manages a sheepish grin and shrugs his shoulders. Well, I didn't... The princess grabs Luke's gun and fires at a small grate in the wall next to Han, almost frying him. What the hell are you doing? Somebody has to save our skins. Into the garbage chute, wise guy. She jumps through the narrow opening as Han and Chewbacca look on in amazement. Chewbacca sniffs the garbage chute and says something. Get in there, you big furry oaf. I don't care what you smell. Get in there and don't worry about it. Han gives him a kick and the Wookiee disappears into the tiny opening. Luke and Han continue firing as they work their way toward the opening. Wonderful girl. Either I'm gonna kill her, or I'm beginning to like her. Get in there. Luke ducks laser fire as he jumps into the darkness. Han fires off a couple of quick blasts, creating a smoky cover. Then he slides into the chute himself and is gone. Han tumbles into the large room filled with garbage and muck. Luke is already stumbling around looking for an exit. He finds a small hatchway and struggles to get it open. It won't budge. Han sarcastically. Oh, the garbage chute was a really wonderful idea. What an incredible smell you've discovered. Let's get out of here. Get away from there. No, wait! Han draws his laser pistol and fires at a hatch. The laser bolt ricochets wildly around the small metal room. Everyone dives for cover in the garbage as the bolt explodes almost on top of them. Leia climbs out of the garbage with a rather grim look on her face. Will you forget it? I already tried it. It's magnetically sealed. Put that thing away. You're going to get us all killed. Absolutely, your worship. Look, I had everything under control until you let us down here. You know, it's not going to take them long to figure out what happened to us. It could be worse. A loud, horrible, inhuman moan works its way up from the murky depths. Chewbacca lets out a terrified howl and begins to back away. Han and Luke stand fast with their laser pistols drawn. The Wookiee is cowering next to one of the walls. It's worse. There's something alive in here. That's your imagination. Something just moved past my leg. Look, did you see that? What? Help! Suddenly, Luke is yanked under the garbage. Luke! Luke! Solo tries to get to Luke. Luke surfaces with a gasp of air and thrashing of limbs. A membrane tentacle is wrapped around his throat. Luke! Leia extends a long pipe toward him. Luke, grab hold of this! Blast it, will you? My gun is jammed. Where? Anywhere! Oh! Solo fires his gun downward, and Luke is pulled back into the muck by the slimy tentacle. Luke! Suddenly, the walls of the garbage receptacle shudder and move in a couple of inches. Then everything is deathly quiet. Han and Leia give each other a worried look as Chewbacca howls in the corner. With a rush of bubbles and muck, Luke suddenly bobs to the surface. Grab him! Luke seems to be released by the thing. What happened? I don't know. It just let go of me and disappeared. I've got a very bad feeling about this. Before anyone can say anything, the walls begin to rumble and edge toward the rebels. The walls are moving. Don't just stand there. Try to brace it with something. They place poles and long metal beams between the closing walls, but they are simply snapped and bent as the giant trash master rumbles on. The situation does not look too good. Wait a minute. Luke pulls in his comlink. 3PO! Come in, 3PO! 3PO? Where could he be? A soft buzzer and the muted voice of Luke calling out for C-3PO can be heard on 3PO's hand comlink, which is sitting on the deserted computer console. R2 and 3PO are nowhere in sight. Suddenly there is a great explosion, and the door of the control tower flies across the room. 4 armed stormtroopers enter the chamber. Take over, pointing to the dead officer. See to him. Look there. A trooper pushes a button and the supply cabinet door slides open. C-3PO and R2-D2 are inside. R2 follows his bronze companion out into the office. They're madmen. They're heading for the prison level. If you hurry, you might catch them. The first officer to his troops. Follow me. You stand guard. The troops hustle off down the hallway, leaving a guard to watch over the command office. To R2. Come on. The guard aims a blaster at them. Oh, all this excitement has overrun the circuits of my counterpart here. If you don't mind, I'd like to take him down to maintenance. All right. The guard nods, and 3PO, with little R2 in tow, hurries out the door. As the walls rumble closed in the garbage room, it gets smaller and smaller. Chewie is whining and trying to hold the wall back with his giant paws. Han is leaning back against the other wall. Garbage is snapping and popping. Luke is trying to reach 3PO. 3PO! Come in, 3PO! 3PO! Han and Leia try to brace the contracting walls with a pole. Leia begins to sink into the trash. Get to the top! I can't! Where could he be? 3PO, will you come in? They aren't here. Something must have happened to them. See if they've been captured. Little R2 carefully plugs his claw arm into a new wall socket, and a complex array of electronic sounds spew from the tiny robot. Hurry! The walls are only feet apart. Leia and Han are braced against the walls. The princess is frightened. They look at each other. Leia reaches out and takes Han's hand. She holds it tightly. She's terrified and suddenly groans as she feels the first crushing pressure against her body. One thing is for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner, he says to Leia. Get on top of it. I'm trying. 3PO to R2. Thank goodness they haven't found them. Where could they be? R2 frantically beeps something to C-3PO. Use the comlink? Oh my, I forgot I turned it off. Meanwhile, Luke is lying on his side, trying to keep his head above the rising ooze. Luke's comlink begins to buzz, and he rips it off his belt. Muffled sounds of Luke's voice over the comlink can be heard, but not distinctly. Are you there, sir? 3PO! We've had some problems. Luke over the comlink. Will you shut up and listen to me? Shut down all the garbage mashers on the detention level, will you? Do you copy? Shut down all the garbage mashers on the detention level. To R2. No, shut them all down. Hurry! 3PO holds his head in agony as he hears the incredible screaming and hollering from Luke's comlink. Listen to them. They're dying, R2. Curse my metal body. I wasn't fast enough. It's all my fault. My poor master. 3PO, we're all right. The screaming and hollering is the sound of joyous relief. The walls have stopped moving. Han, Chewie, and Leia embrace in the background. We're all right. You did great. Luke moves to the pressure-sensitive hatch, looking for a number. Hey, open the pressure maintenance hatch on unit number... Where are we? 326827. Ben enters a humming service trench that powers the huge tractor beam. The trench seems to be 100 miles deep. The cackling sound of huge switching devices can be heard. The old Jedi edges his way along a narrow ledge leading to a control panel that connects two large cables. He carefully makes several adjustments on the computer terminal, and several lights on the board go from red to blue. The group exits the garbage room into a dusty, unused hallway. Han and Luke remove the trooper suits and strap on the blaster belts. If we can just avoid any more female advice, we ought to be able to get out of here. Luke smiles and scratches his head as he takes a blaster from Solo. Well, let's get moving. Chewie begins growling and points to the hatch to the garbage room as he runs away, and then stops howling. Where are you going? The Dia Nagu bangs against the hatch, and a long, slimy tentacle works its way out of the doorway, searching for a victim. Han aims his pistol. No, wait! They'll hear! Han fires at the doorway. The noise of the blast echoes relentlessly through the empty passageway. Luke simply shakes his head in disgust. Han to Chewie. Come here, you big coward. Chewie shakes his head no. Chewie, come here. Listen, I don't know who you are or where you're from, but from now on, you do as I tell you, okay? Han is stunned at the command of the petite young girl. Look, your worshipfulness, let's get one thing straight here. I take orders from one person. Me. It's a wonder you're still alive. Looking at Chewie. Will someone get this big walking carpet out of my way? Han watches her start away. He looks at Luke. No reward is worth this. They follow her, moving swiftly down the deserted corridor. Suddenly a door behind Ben slides open, and a detachment of stormtroopers marches to the power trench. Ben instantly slips into the shadows as an officer moves to within a few feet of him. Secure the area until the alert is cancelled. Give me regular reports. All but 2 of the stormtroopers leave. Do you know what's going on? Maybe it's another drill. Ben moves around the tractor beam, watching the stormtroopers as they turn their backs to him. Ben gestures with his hand toward them, and the troopers think they heard something in the other hallway. With the help of the Force, Ben deftly slips past the troopers and into the main hallway. What was that? Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Luke, Han, Chewbacca, and Leia run down an empty hallway and stop before a bay window overlooking the pirate ship. Troopers are milling about the ship. Luke takes out his pocket comlink. Han looking at his ship. There she is. C-3PO, do you copy? For a moment. We're in the main hangar across from the ship. We're right above you. Stand by. Han is watching the dozen or so troops move in and out of the pirate ship. Leia moves toward Han, touches his arm, and points out the window to the ship. You came in that thing? You're braver than I thought. Nice, come on. Han gives her a dirty look, and they start off down the hallway. They round a corner and run right into 20 Imperial stormtroopers heading right toward them. Both groups are taken by surprise and stop in their tracks. It's them! Blast them! Before even thinking, Han draws his laser pistol and charges the troops, firing. His blaster knocks one of the stormtroopers into the air. Chewie follows his captain down the corridor, stepping over the fallen trooper on the floor. Han to Luke and Leia. Get back to the ship! Where are you going? Come back! Han has already rounded a corner and does not hear. He certainly has courage. What good will it do us if he gets himself killed? Come on! Luke is furious but doesn't have time to think about it, for muted alarms begin to go off down the hangar deck. Luke and Leia start off toward the starship hangar. Han chases the stormtroopers down the long sub-hallway. He's yelling and brandishing his laser pistol. The troops reach a dead end and are forced to turn and fight. Han stops a few feet from them and assumes a defensive position. The troops begin to raise their laser guns. Soon all 10 troopers are moving into an attack position and in front of the Lone Star pirate. Han's determined look begins to fade as the troops begin to advance. Solo jumps backward as they fire at him. Chewbacca runs down the sub-hallway in the last-ditch attempt to save his bold captain. Suddenly he hears the firing of laser guns and yelling. Around the corner shoots Han, pirate extraordinaire, running for his life, followed by a host of furious stormtroopers. Chewbacca turns and starts running the other way also. Luke fires his laser pistol wildly as he and Leia rush down a narrow sub-hallway, chased by several stormtroopers. They quickly reach the end of the sub-hallway and race through an empty hatchway. Luke and Leia race through the narrow hatchway onto a narrow bridge that spans a huge, deep shaft that seems to go into infinity. The bridge has been retracted into the wall of the shaft, and Luke almost rushes into the abyss. He loses his balance off the end of the bridge as Leia behind him takes hold of his arm and pulls him back. Luke gasping, "I think we took a wrong turn." Blasts from the stormtroopers' laser guns explode nearby, reminding them of the oncoming danger. Luke fires back at the advancing troops. Leia reaches over and hits a switch that pops the hatch door shut with a resounding boom, leaving them precariously perched on a short piece of bridge overhang. Laser fire from the troopers continues to hit the steel door. "There's no lock!" Luke blasts the controls with his laser pistol. "That ought to hold it for a while." "Quick, we've got to get across. Find the control that extends the bridge." "Oh, I think I just blasted it." Luke looks at the blasted bridge control while stormtroopers on the opposite side of the door begin making ominous drilling and pounding sounds. "They're coming through!" Luke notices something on his stormtrooper belt when laser fire hits the wall behind him. Luke aims his laser pistol at a stormtrooper perched on a high bridge overhang across the abyss from them. They exchange fire. 2 more troops appear on another overhang, also firing. The trooper is hit and grabs at his chest. Another trooper standing on the bridge is hit by Luke's laser fire and plummets down the shaft. Troopers move back off the bridge, and Luke hands the gun to Leia. "Here, hold this." Luke pulls a thin nylon cable from his trooper utility belt. It has a grappler hook on it. A trooper appears on a bridge overhang and fires at Luke and Leia. As Luke works with the rope, Leia returns the laser volley. Another trooper appears and fires at them, as Leia returns his fire as well. Suddenly the hatch door begins to open, revealing the feet of more troops. "Here they come!" Leia hits one of the stormtroopers on the bridge above. He falls into the abyss. Luke tosses the rope across the gorge, and it wraps itself around an outcropping of pipes. He tugs on the rope to make sure it's secure, then grabs the princess in his arms. Leia looks at Luke and then kisses him quickly on the lips. Luke is very surprised. "For luck!" Luke pushes off and they swing across the treacherous abyss to the corresponding hatchway on the opposite side. Just as Luke and Leia reach the far side of the canyon, the stormtroopers break through the hatch and begin to fire at the escaping duo. Luke returns the fire before ducking into the tiny sub-hallway. Ben hides in the shadows of the narrow passageway as several stormtroopers rush past him in the main hallway. He checks to make sure they're gone, then runs down the hallway in the opposite direction. Darth Vader appears at the far end of the hallway and starts after the old Jedi. 3PO looks at the troops milling about the pirate ship entry ramp. Where could they be? R2, plugged into the computer socket, turns his dome left and right, beeping a response. Han and Chewbacca run down a long corridor with several troopers hot on their trail. "Close the blast doors!" At the end of the hallway, blast doors begin to close in front of them. The young star pilot and his furry companion race past the huge doors just as they are closing, and manage to get off a couple of laser blasts at the pursuing troops before the doors slam shut. "Open the blast doors! Open the blast doors!" Ben hurries along one of the tunnels, leading to the hangar where the pirate ship awaits. Just before he reaches the hangar, Darth Vader steps into view at the end of the tunnel, not 10 feet away. Vader lights his saber. Ben also ignites his and steps slowly forward. "I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete." Ben Kenobi moves with elegant ease into a classical offensive position. The fearsome Dark Knight takes a defensive stance. "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." "Only a master of evil, Darth." The two galactic warriors stand perfectly still for a few moments, sizing each other up and waiting for the right moment. Ben seems to be under increasing pressure and strain, almost as if an invisible weight were being placed on him. He shakes his head, blinking, and tries to clear his eyes. Ben makes a sudden lunge at the huge warrior, but is checked by a lightning movement of the Sith. A powerful slash stroke by Vader is blocked by the old Jedi. Another of the Jedi's blows is blocked and then countered. Ben moves around the Dark Lord and starts backing into the massive starship hangar. The two powerful warriors stand motionless for a few moments, with laser swords locked in midair, creating a low buzzing sound. "Your powers are weak, old man." "You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." Their lightsabers continue to meet in combat. Han Solo and Chewbacca, their weapons in hand, lean back against the wall surveying the forward bay, watching the Imperial stormtroopers make their rounds of the hangar. "Didn't we just leave this party?" Chewbacca growls a reply as Luke and the princess join them. "What kept you?" "We ran into some old friends." "Is the ship all right?" "Seems okay if we can get to it. Just hope the old man got the tractor beam out of commission." Vader and Ben Kenobi continue their powerful duel. As they hit their lightsabers together, lightning flashes on impact. Troopers look on in interest as the old Jedi and Dark Lord of the Sith fight. Suddenly, Luke spots the battle from his group's vantage point. "Look!" Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie look up and see Ben and Vader emerge from the hallways on the far side of the docking bay. 3PO and R2 are in the center of the Death Star's Imperial docking bay. "Come on, R2, we're going!" 3PO ducks out of sight as the 7 stormtroopers who were guarding the starship rush past them, heading toward Ben and the Sith Knight. He pulls on R2. Solo, Chewie, Luke, and Leia tensely watch the duel. The troops rush toward the battling knights. "Now's our chance! Go!" They start for the Millennium Falcon. Ben sees the troops charging toward him and realizes he's trapped. Vader takes advantage of Ben's momentary distraction and brings his mighty lightsaber down on the old man. Ben manages to deflect the blow and swiftly turns around. The old Jedi Knight looks over his shoulder at Luke, lifts his sword from Vader's, then watches his opponent with a serene look on his face. Vader brings his sword down, cutting old Ben in half. Ben's cloak falls to the floor in 2 parts, but Ben is not in it. Vader is puzzled at Ben's disappearance and pokes at the empty cloak. As the guards are distracted, the adventurers and the robots reach the starship. Luke sees Ben cut in 2 and starts for him. Aghast, he yells out, "No!" The stormtroopers turn toward Luke and begin firing at him. The robots are already moving up the ramp into the Millennium Falcon, while Luke, transfixed by anger and awe, returns their fire. Solo joins in the laser fire. Vader looks up and advances toward them, as one of his troopers is struck down. Han to Luke, "Come on! Come on, Luke, it's too late! Blast the door, kid!" Luke fires his pistol at the door control panel, and it explodes. The door begins to slide shut. 3 troopers charge forward firing laser bolts as the door slides to a close behind them, shutting Vader and the other troops out of the docking bay. A stormtrooper lies dead at the feet of his onrushing compatriots. Luke starts for the advancing troops as Solo and Leia move up the ramp onto the pirate ship. He fires, hitting a stormtrooper, who crumbles to the floor. Ben's voice, "Run, Luke, run!" Luke looks around to see where the voice came from. He turns toward the pirate ship, ducking Imperial gunfire from the troopers, and races onto the ship. Han pulls back the controls and the ship begins to move. The dull thud of laser bolts bouncing off the outside of the ship as Chewie adjusts his controls. "I just hope the old man got that tractor beam out of commission, or this is going to be a real short trip." "Okay, hit it." Chewbacca growls in agreement. The Millennium Falcon powers away from the Death Star docking bay, makes a spectacular turn and disappears into the vastness of space. Luke, saddened by the loss of Obi-Wan Kenobi, stares off blankly as the robots look on. Leia puts a blanket around him protectively, and Luke turns and looks up at her. She sits down beside him. Solo spots approaching enemy ships. "We're coming up on sentry ships. Hold them off. Angle the deflector shields while I charge up the main guns." Luke looks downward sadly, shaking his head back and forth, as the princess smiles comfortingly at him. "I can't believe he's gone." R2 beeps a reply. "There wasn't anything you could have done." Han rushes into the hold area, where Luke is sitting with the princess. "Come on, buddy, we're not out of this yet." Solo climbs into his attack position in the topside gunport. Luke gets up and moves out toward the gunport as Leia heads for the cockpit. Luke climbs down the ladder into the gunport cockpit, settling into one of the two main laser cannons mounted in large rotating turrets on either side of the ship. Han adjusts his headset as he sits before the controls of his laser cannon, then speaks into the attached microphone. "You in, kid? Okay, stay sharp." Chewbacca and Princess Leia search the heavens for attacking TIE fighters. The Wookiee pulls back on the speed controls as the ship bounces slightly. Computer graphic readouts form on Solo's target screen as Han reaches for controls. Luke sits in readiness for the attack, his hand on the laser cannon's control button. Chewbacca spots the enemy ships and barks. Leia into the intercom. "Here they come!" The Imperial TIE fighters move toward the Millennium Falcon, each one veering off to the left and right of the pirate ship. The stars whip past behind the Imperial pilot as he adjusts his maneuvering joystick. The TIE fighter races past the Falcon, firing laser beams as it passes. 3PO is seated in the hold area next to R2-D2. The pirate ship bounces and vibrates as the power goes out in the room and then comes back on. A TIE fighter maneuvers in front of Han, who follows it and fires at it with the laser cannon. Luke does likewise as the fighter streaks into view. The ship has suffered a minor hit and bounces slightly. Two TIE fighters dive down toward the pirate ship. Luke fires at an unseen fighter. "They're coming in too fast!" We pan with the pirate ship as two TIE fighters charge through the background. Laser bolts streak from all the craft. The ship shudders as a laser bolt hits very close to the cockpit. The Wookiee chatters something to Leia. A full shot of a TIE fighter as it moves fast through the frame, firing on the pirate starship. The two TIE fighters fire a barrage of laser beams at the pirate ship. A laser bolt streaks into the side of the pirate ship. The ship lurches violently, throwing poor 3PO into a cabinet full of small computer chips. "Ooh!" Leia watches the computer readout as Chewbacca manipulates the ship's controls. "We've lost lateral controls." "Don't worry, she'll hold together." An enemy laser bolt hits the pirate ship's control panel, causing it to blow out in a shower of sparks. "You hear me, baby? Hold together," talking to the ship. R2-D2 advances toward the smoking, sparking control panel, dousing the Inferno, spraying it with fire retardant, beeping all the while. Luke swivels in his gun mount, following the TIE fighter with his laser cannon. Solo aims his laser cannon at the enemy fighter. A TIE fighter streaks in front of the starship, and Leia watches the TIE fighter ship fly over. A TIE fighter heads right for the pirate ship and then zooms overhead. Luke follows the TIE fighter across his field of view, firing laser beams from his cannon. A TIE fighter dives past the pirate ship. Luke fires at the TIE fighter. At his port, Han follows a fighter in his sights, releasing a blast of laser fire. He connects, and the fighter explodes into fiery dust. Han laughs victoriously. Two TIE fighters move toward and over the Millennium Falcon, unleashing a barrage of laser bolts at the ship. Another TIE fighter moves in on the pirate ship and Luke, smiling, fires the laser cannon at it, scoring a spectacular direct hit. I got him! I got him! Han turns and gives Luke a victory wave, which Luke gleefully returns. Great, kid! Now don't get cocky. Han turns back to his laser cannon. 2 more TIE fighters cross in front of the pirate ship. While Chewbacca manipulates the controls, Leia turns, looks over her shoulder, out the ports. There are still 2 more of them out there. A TIE fighter moves up over the pirate ship, firing laser blasts at it. Luke and Han look into their respective projected target screens. An Imperial fighter crosses Solo's port, and Han swivels in his chair, following it with blasts from his laser cannon. Another fighter crosses Luke's port, and he reacts in a like manner, the glow of his target screen lighting his face. The TIE fighter zooms toward the pirate ship, firing destructive blasts at it. Luke fires a laser blast at the approaching enemy fighter, and it bursts into a spectacular explosion. Luke's projected screen gives a readout of the hit. The pirate ship bounces slightly, as it is struck by the enemy fire. The last of the attacking Imperial TIE fighters looms in, firing upon the Falcon. Solo swivels behind his cannon, his aim describing the arc of the TIE fighter. The fighter comes closer, firing at the pirate ship, but a well-aimed blast from Solo's laser cannon hits the attacker, which blows up in a small atomic shower of burning fragments. Ha! That's it! We did it! The princess jumps up and gives Chewie a congratulatory hug. We did it! 3PO lies at the floor of the ship, completely tangled in the smoking, sparking wires. Help! I think I'm melting! To R2. This is all your fault! R2 turns his dome from side to side, beeping in response. The victorious Millennium Falcon moves off majestically through space. Darth Vader strides into the control room where Tarkin is watching a huge view screen. A sea of stars is before him. Are they away? They have just made the jump into hyperspace. You're sure the homing beacon is secure aboard their ship? I'm taking an awful risk, Vader. This had better work. Han removes his gloves and, smiling, is at the controls of the ship. Chewie moves into the aft section to check the damage. Leia is seated near Han. Not a bad bit of rescuing, huh? You know, sometimes I even amaze myself. That doesn't sound too hard. Besides, they let us go. It's the only explanation for the ease of our escape. Easy? You call that easy? They are tracking us. Not this ship, sister. Frustrated, Leia shakes her head. At least the information in R2 is still intact. What's so important? What's he carrying? The technical readouts of that battle station. I only hope that when the data is analyzed, a weakness can be found. It's not over yet. It is for me, sister. Look, I ain't in this for your revolution, and I'm not in it for you, princess. I expect to be well paid. I'm in it for the money. You needn't worry about your reward. If money is all that you love, then that's what you'll receive. She angrily turns, and as she starts out of the cockpit, she passes Luke coming in. Your friend is quite a mercenary. I wonder if he really cares about anything or anyone. I care. Luke, shaking his head, sits in the co-pilot's seat. He and Han stare out at the vast blackness of space. So, what do you think of her, Han? I'm trying not to, kid. Luke, under his breath. Good. Still, she's got a lot of spirit. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think a princess and a guy like me? No. Luke says it with finality and looks away. Han smiles at young Luke's jealousy. The battered pirate ship drifts into orbit around the planet Yavin and proceeds to one of its tiny green moons. The pirate ship soars over the dense jungle. An alert guard, his laser gun in hand, scans the countryside. He sets the gun down and looks toward the temple, barely visible in the foliage. Rotting in a forest of gargantuan trees, an ancient temple lies shrouded in an eerie mist. The air is heavy with the fantastic cries of unimaginable creatures. Han, Luke, and the others are greeted by the rebel troops. Luke and the group ride into the massive temple on an armored military speeder. The military speeder stops in a huge spaceship hangar, set up in the interior of the crumbling temple. Willard, the commander of the rebel forces, rushes up to the group and gives Leia a big hug. Everyone is pleased to see her. "You're safe. We had feared the worst," holding Leia. Willard composes himself, steps back, and bows formally. "When we heard about Alderaan, we were afraid that you were lost along with your father." "We don't have time for sorrows, Commander. The battle station has surely tracked us here," looking pointedly to Han. "It's the only explanation for our ease of escape. You must use the information in this R2 unit to plan the attack. It is our only hope." The surface of the Death Star ominously approaches the red planet Yavin. Grand Moff Tarkin and Lord Vader are interrupted in their discussion by the buzz of the comlink. Tarkin moves to answer the call. "Yes?" The intercom voice. "We are approaching the planet Yavin. The rebel base is on a moon on the far side. We are preparing to orbit the planet." A lone guard stands in a tower high above the Yavin landscape, surveying the countryside. A mist hangs over the jungle of twisted green. Dodonna stands before the large electronic wall display. Leia and several other senators are to one side of the giant readout. The low-ceilinged room is filled with star pilots, navigators, and a sprinkling of R2-type droids. Everyone is listening intently to what Dodonna is saying. Han and Chewbacca are standing near the back. "The battle station is heavily shielded and carries a firepower greater than half the Starfleet. Its defenses are designed around a direct large-scale assault. A small one-man fighter should be able to penetrate the outer defense." Gold Leader, a rough-looking man in his early 30s, stands and addresses Dodonna. "Pardon me for asking, sir, but what good are snub fighters going to be against that?" "Well, the Empire doesn't consider a small one-man fighter to be any threat, or they'd have a tighter defense. Analysis of these plans provided by Princess Leia has demonstrated a weakness in the battle station." R2-D2 stands next to a similar robot and makes beeping sounds, turning his head from right to left. "The approach will not be easy. You are required to maneuver straight down this trench and skim the surface to this point. The target area is only 2 meters wide. It's a small thermal exhaust port, right below the main port. The shaft leads directly to the reactor system. A precise hit will start a chain reaction, which should destroy the station." A murmur of disbelief runs through the room. "Only a precise hit will set up a chain reaction. The shaft is ray-shielded, so you'll have to use proton torpedoes." Luke is sitting next to Wedge Antilles, a hotshot pilot about 16 years old. "That's impossible, even for a computer." Luke. "It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters. Man your ships, and may the Force be with you." The group rises and begins to leave. The Death Star begins to move around the planet toward the tiny green moon. Tarkin and Vader watch the computer-projected screen with interest as a circle of lights intertwines around one another on the screen, showing its position in relation to Yavin and the fourth moon. The intercom voice. "Orbiting the planet at maximum velocity. The moon with the rebel base will be in range in 30 minutes. This will be a day long remembered. It has seen the end of Kenobi, and it will soon see the end of the rebellion." Luke, 3PO, and little R2 enter the huge spaceship hangar and hurry along a long line of gleaming space fighters. The flight crews rush around, loading last-minute armaments and unlocking power couplings. In an area isolated from this activity, Luke finds Han and Chewbacca loading small boxes into an armored speeder. A man's voice over the loudspeaker. "All flight troopers, man your stations. All flight troops, man your stations." Han is deliberately ignoring the activity of the fighter pilot's preparation. Luke is quite saddened at the sight of his friend's departure. "So, you got your reward and you're just gonna leave?" "That's right. Yeah, I got some old debts I've got to pay off with this stuff. Even if I didn't, you don't think I'd be fool enough to stick around here, do you? Why don't you come with us? You're pretty good in a fight. I could use you." Luke getting angry. "Come on. Why don't you take a look around? You know what's about to happen, what they're up against. They could use a good pilot like you. You're turning your back on them. What good's a reward if you ain't around to use it? Besides, attacking that battle station ain't my idea of courage. It's more like suicide." "All right, well, take care of yourself, Han. I guess that's what you're best at, isn't it?" Luke goes off and Han hesitates and then calls to him. "Hey, Luke, may the Force be with you." Luke turns and sees Han wink at him. Luke lifts his hand in a small wave and then goes off. Han turns to Chewie, who growls at his captain. "What are you looking at? I know what I'm doing." Luke, Leia, and Dodonna meet under a huge space fighter. "What's wrong?" "Oh, it's Han. I don't know. I really thought he'd change his mind. He's got to follow his own path. No one can choose it for him. I only wish Ben were here." Leia gives Luke a little kiss, turns and goes off. As Luke heads for his ship, another pilot rushes up to him and grabs his arm. "Luke? I don't believe it. How did you get here? Are you going out with us?" "Biggs? Of course. I'll be up there with you. Listen, have I got some stories to tell." Red Leader, a rugged, handsome man in his 40s, comes up behind Luke and Biggs. He has the confident smile of a born leader. "Are you Luke Skywalker?" "Have you checked out on the intercom T-65? "Sir, Luke is the best bush pilot in the Outer Rim territories." Red Leader pats Luke on the back as they stop in front of his fighter. "I met your father once when I was just a boy. He was a great pilot. You'll do all right. If you got half your father's skill, you'll do better than all right." "Thank you, sir. I'll try." Red Leader hurries to his own ship. "I've got to get aboard. Listen, you tell me your stories when we come back, all right?" "I told you I'd make it someday, Biggs." Biggs going off. "You did all right. It's going to be like old times, Luke. We're a couple of shooting stars that'll never be stopped." Luke laughs and shakes his head in agreement. He heads for his ship. As Luke begins to climb up the ladder into his sleek, deadly spaceship, the crew chief, who's working on the craft, points to little R2, who's being hoisted into a socket on the back of the fighter. "This R2 unit of yours seems a bit beat up. Do you want a new one?" "Not on your life. That little droid and I have been through a lot together." "You okay, R2?" The crewmen lower R2 into the craft. Now a part of the exterior of the starship, the little droid beeps that he is fine. Luke climbs up into the cockpit of his fighter and puts on his helmet. 3PO looks on from the floor of the massive hangar as the crewmen secure his little electronic partner into Luke's X-Wing. It's an emotional-filled moment as R2 beeps goodbye. "Okay, easy she goes." 3PO. "Hang on tight, R2. You've got to come back." R2 beeps in agreement. "You wouldn't want my life to get boring, would you?" R2 whistles his reply. All final preparations are made for the approaching battle. The hangar is buzzing with last-minute activity as the pilots and crewmen alike make their final adjustments. The hum of activity is occasionally trespassed by the distorted voice of the loudspeaker issuing commands. Coupling hoses are disconnected from the ships as they are fueled. Cockpit shields roll smoothly into place over each pilot. A signalman holding red guiding lights directs the ships. Luke, a trace of a smile gracing his lips, peers about through his goggles. Ben's voice. Luke, the Force will be with you. Luke is confused at the voice and taps his headphones. All that can be seen of the fortress is a lone guard standing on a small pedestal, jutting out above the dense jungle. The muted, gruesome crying sounds that naturally permeate this eerie purgatory are overwhelmed by the thundering din of ion rockets as 4 silver starships catapult from the foliage in a tight formation and disappear into the morning cloud cover. The Princess, 3PO, and a field commander sit quietly before the giant display showing the planet Yavin and its 4 moons. The red dot that represents the Death Star moves even closer to the system. A series of green dots appears around the 4th moon. A din of indistinct chatter fills the war room. Stand alert. Death Star approaching. Estimated time to firing range, 15 minutes. The Death Star slowly moves behind the massive yellow surface of Yavin in the foreground, as many X-Wing fighters flying in formation zoom towards us and out of frame. Light from a distant sun creates an eerie atmospheric glow around a huge planet, Yavin. Rebel fighters flying in formation settle ominously in the foreground and very slowly pull away. Red Leader lowers his visor and adjusts his gun sights, looking to each side at his wingmen. All wings report in. One of the rebel fighters checks in through his mic. Red 10 standing by. Biggs checks his fighter controls, alert and ready for combat. Red 7 standing by. Red 3 standing by. Red 6 standing by. Red 9 standing by. Red 2 standing by. Red 11 standing by. Luke. Red 5 standing by. R2-D2 in position outside of the fighter turns his head from side to side and makes beeping sounds. Lock S-foils in attack position. The group of X-Wing fighters move in formation toward the Death Star, unfolding their wings and locking them in the X position. The Red Leader overhead said, We're passing through their magnetic field. Hold tight. Luke adjusts his controls as he concentrates on the approaching Death Star. The ship begins to be buffeted slightly. Switch your deflectors on. Double front. The fighters, now X-shaped darts, move in formation. The Death Star now appears to be a small moon, growing rapidly in size as the rebel fighters approach. Complex patterns on the metallic surface begin to become visible. A large dish antenna is built into the surface on one side. Wedge is amazed and slightly frightened at the awesome spectacle. Look at the size of that thing! Cut the chatter, Red 2. Accelerate to attack speed. This is it, boys. As the fighters move closer to the Death Star, the awesome size of the gargantuan Imperial fortress is revealed. Half of the deadly space station is in shadow, and this area sparkles with thousands of small lights running in thin lines and occasionally grouped in large clusters, somewhat like a city at night as seen from a weather satellite. Red Leader, this is Gold Leader. I copy, Gold Leader. We're starting for the target shaft now. Red Leader looks around at his wingmen, the Death Star looming in from behind. 2 Y-wing fighters bob back and forth in the background. He moves his computer targeting device into position. We're in position. I'm going to cut across the axis and try to draw their fire. 2 squads of rebel fighters peel off. The X-Wings dive toward the Death Star's surface. 1,000 lights glow across the gray, dark expanse of the huge station. Alarm sirens scream as soldiers scramble to large turbo-powered laser gun emplacements. Electronic drivers rotate the huge guns into position as crews adjust their targeting devices. Laser bolts streak through the star-filled night. The Rebel X-Wing fighters move in toward the Imperial base as the Death Star aims its massive laser guns at the Rebel forces and fires. Princess Leia listens to the battle over the intercom. 3PO is at her side. Wedge over the war room speakers. "Heavy fire, boss! 20 degrees!" "I see it. Stay low." An X-Wing zooms across the surface of the Death Star. Technical crews scurry here and there loading last-minute armaments and unlocking power cables in the Death Star. Wedge maneuvers his fighter toward the menacing Death Star. X-Wings continue their attack course on the Death Star. Luke nosedives radically, starting his attack on the monstrous fortress. The Death Star's surface streaks past the cockpit window. "This is Red 5, I'm going in." Luke's X-Wing races toward the Death Star. Laser bolts streak from Luke's weapons, creating a huge fireball explosion on the dim surface. Terror crosses Luke's face as he realizes he won't be able to pull out in time to avoid the fireball. "Luke, heads up!" Luke's ship emerges from the fireball, with the leading edges of his wings slightly scorched. "Are you all right?" Luke adjusts his controls and breathes a sigh of relief. Flak bursts outside the cockpit window. "I got a little cooked, but I'm okay." Rebel fighters continue to strafe the Death Star's surface with laser bolts. Walls buckle and cave in. Troops and equipment are blown in all directions. Stormtroopers stagger out of the rubble. Standing in the middle of the chaos, a vision of calm and foreboding, is Darth Vader. One of his Astro officers rushes up to him. "We count 30 rebel ships, Lord Vader. But they're so small they're evading our turbo lasers." "We'll have to destroy them, ship to ship. Get the crews to their fighters." Smoke belches from the giant laser guns as they wind up their turbine generators to create sufficient power. The crew rushes about, preparing for another blast. Even the troopers' headgear is not adequate to protect them from the overwhelming noise of the monstrous weapon. One trooper bangs his helmet with his head in an attempt to stop the ringing. Red Leader flies through a heavy hail of flak. "Luke, let me know when you're going in." The Red Leader's X-Wing flies past Luke as he puts his nose down and starts his attack dive. "I'm on my way in now." "Watch yourself. There's a lot of fire coming from the right side of that deflection tower." "I'm on it." Luke flings his X-Wing into a twisting dive across the horizon and down onto the dim gray surface. A shot hurls from Luke's guns. Laser bolts streak toward the onrushing Death Star surface. Several small radar emplacements erupt in flame. Laser fire erupts from a protruding tower on the surface. A blurry Death Star surface races past the cockpit window as a big smile sweeps across Luke's face at the success of his run. Flak thunders on all sides of him. The Death Star superstructure races past Luke as he maneuvers his craft through a wall of laser fire and peels away from the surface toward the heavens. The thunder and smoke of the big guns reverberate throughout the massive structure. Many soldiers rush about in the smoke and chaos, silhouetted by the almost continual flash of explosions. Biggs dives through a forest of radar domes, antenna, and gun towers as he shoots low across the Death Star surface. A dense barrage of laser fire streaks by on all sides. Imperial Star pilots dash in unison to a line of small auxiliary hatches that lead to Imperial TIE fighters. Princess Leia, surrounded by her generals and aides, paces nervously before a lighted computer table. On all sides, technicians work in front of many lighted glass walls. Dodonna watches quietly from one corner. One of the officers, working over a screen, speaks into his headset. "Squad leaders, we've picked up a new group of signals. Enemy fighters coming your way." Luke looks around to see if he can spot the approaching Imperial fighters. My scope is negative. I don't see anything. The Death Star's surface sweeps past as Red Leader searches the sky for the Imperial fighters. Flak pounds at his ship. Keep up your visual scanning. With all this jamming, they'll be on top of you before your scope can pick them up. Silhouetted against the rim lights of the Death Star horizon, 4 ferocious Imperial TIE ships dive on the Rebel fighters. 2 of the TIE fighters peel off and drop out of frame. Pan with the remaining 2 TIE ships. Biggs panics when he discovers a TIE ship on his tail. The horizon in the background twists around as he peels off, hoping to lose the Imperial fighter. Biggs, you've picked one up. Watch it. I can't see it. Where is he? Biggs zooms off the surface and into space, closely followed by an Imperial TIE fighter. The TIE ship fires several laser bolts at Biggs but misses. Biggs sees the TIE ship behind him and swings around, trying to avoid him. He's on me tight. I can't shake him. I can't shake him. Biggs, flying at high altitude, peels off and dives toward the Death Star's surface, but he's unable to lose the TIE fighter, who sticks close to his tail. Luke is flying upside down. He rotates his ship around to the normal attitude as he comes out of his dive. Hang on, Biggs, I'm coming in. Biggs and the tailing TIE ship dive for the surface, now followed by a fast-gaining Luke. After Biggs dives out of sight, Luke chases the Imperial fighter. In the foreground, the Imperial fighter races across the Death Star's surface, closely followed by Luke in the background. There's a shot from Luke's X-wing of the TIE ship exploding in a mass of flames. Got him! Darth Vader strides purposefully down a Death Star corridor, flanked by Imperial stormtroopers. Several fighters have broken off from the main group. Come with me. A concerned Princess Leia, 3PO, Dodonna, and other officers of the rebellion stand around the huge round readout screens, listening to the ship-to-ship communication on the room's loudspeaker. Pull in, Luke! Pull in! Wedge over the speaker. Watch your back, Luke! Watch your back! Fighters above you! Coming in! Luke's ship soars away from the Death Star's surface as he spots the tailing TIE fighter. The TIE pilot takes aim at Luke's X-wing. The Imperial TIE fighter pilot scores a hit on Luke's ship. Fire breaks out on the right side of the X-wing. Luke looks out of his cockpit at the flames on his ship. I'm hit, but not bad. Smoke pours out from behind R2-D2. R2, see what you can do with it. Hang on back there. Green laser fire moves past the beeping little robot as his head turns. Luke nervously works his controls. Red 6. In the war room, Leia stands frozen as she listens and worries about Luke. Can you see Red 5? Red 10 over speaker. There's heavy fire zone on this side. Red 5, where are you? Luke spots the TIE fighter behind him and soars away from the Death Star's surface. I can't shake him. Luke's ship soars closer to the surface of the Death Star, an Imperial TIE fighter closing in on him in hot pursuit. The Death Star whips below Wedge. I'm on him, Luke. Hold on. Wedge dives below the horizon toward Luke and the TIE fighter. Wedge moves his X-wing in rapidly. Luke reacts frantically. Blast it, Wedge, where are you? The fighter pilot watches Wedge's X-wing approach. Another X-wing joins him, and both unleash a volley of laser fire on the Imperial fighter. The TIE fighter explodes, filling the screen with white light. Luke's ship can be seen far in the distance. Luke looks about in relief. Thanks, Wedge. Leia, 3PO, Dodonna, and other Rebel officers are listening to the Rebel fighters' radio transmissions over the war room intercom. Biggs over intercom. Good shooting, Wedge. Gold Leader over the speaker. Red Leader. Gold Leader peels off and starts toward the long trenches at the Death Star surface pole. This is Gold Leader. We are starting our attack run. 3 Y-Wing fighters of the Gold Group dive out of the stars toward the Death Star's surface. Leia and the others are grouped around the screen as technicians move about, attending to their duties. I copy, Gold Leader. Move into position. 3 Imperial TIE ships in precise formation dive toward the Death Star surface. Darth Vader calmly adjusts his control stick as the stars whip past in the window above his head. Stay in attack formation. Technicians are seated at the computer readout table. The exhaust port is marked and locked in. The Gold Leader approaches the surface and pulls out to skim the surface of the huge station. The ship moves into a deep trench, firing laser bolts. The surface streaks past as laser fire is returned by the Death Star. Gold 5 is a pilot in his early 50s with a very battered helmet. It looks as though he's been through many battles. He looks around to see if enemy ships are nearby. His fighter is buffeted by Imperial flak. Gold Leader races down the enormous trench that leads to the exhaust port. Laser bolts blast toward him in increasing numbers, occasionally exploding near the ship, causing it to bounce about. Switch power to front deflector screens. 3 Y-Wings skim the Death Star surface, deep in the trench, as laser bolts streak past on all sides. An exterior surface gun blazes away at the oncoming Rebel fighters. How many guns do you think, Gold 5? I'd say about 20 guns, some on the surface, some on the towers. Leia, 3PO, and the technicians view the projected target screen as red and blue target lights glow. The red target near the center blinks on and off. Death Star will be in range in 5 minutes. The 3 Y-Wing fighters race toward camera and zoom overhead through a hail of laser fire. Gold Leader pulls his computer targeting device down in front of his eye. Laser bolts continue to batter the Rebel craft. Switching to targeting computer. Gold 2, a younger pilot about Luke's age, pulls down his targeting eye viewer and adjusts it. His ship shudders under intense laser barrage. Computers locked, getting a signal. As the fighters begin to approach the target area, suddenly all the laser fire stops. An eerie calm clings over the trench as the surface whips past in a blur. The guns, they've stopped. Gold 5 looks behind him. Stabilize your reed deflectors. Watch for enemy fighters. They're coming in! 3 marks at 210. 3 Imperial TIE ships, Darth Vader in the center, flanked by 2 wingmen, dive in precise formation, almost vertically, toward the Death Star surface. Darth Vader calmly adjusts his control stick as the stars zoom by. I'll take them myself. Cover me. The wingman's voice over the speaker. Yes, sir. 3 TIE fighters zoom across the surface of the Death Star. Vader lines up Gold 2 in his targeting computer. Vader's hands grip the control stick as he presses the button. The cockpit explodes around Gold 2 and his head falls forward. As Gold 2's ship explodes, debris is flung out into space. Gold Leader looks over his shoulder at the scene. The 3 TIE fighters race along in the trench in a tight formation. Gold Leader panics. I can't maneuver! Gold 5, the old veteran, tries to calm Gold Leader. Stay on target. The Death Star races by outside the cockpit window as he adjusts his targeting device. We're too close! The older pilot remains calm. Stay on target. Now he's really panicked. Loosen up! Vader calmly adjusts his targeting computer and pushes the fire button. Gold Leader's ship is hit by Vader's laser. Gold Leader explodes in a ball of flames, throwing debris in all directions. Gold 5 moves in on the exhaust port. Gold 5 to Red Leader. Luke looks over his shoulder at the action outside his cockpit. Lost Tari, lost Dutch. I copy, Gold 5. They came from behind. One of the engines explodes on Gold 5's Y-Wing fighter, blazing out of control. He dives past the horizon toward the Death Star's surface, passing a TIE fighter during his descent. Gold 5, a veteran of countless campaigns, spins toward his death. Luke looks nervously about him at the explosive battle. Grand Moff Tarkin and a chief officer stand in the Death Star's control room. We've analyzed their attack, sir, and there is a danger. Should I have your ship standing by? Evacuate? In a moment of triumph? I think you overestimate their chances. Tarkin turns to the computer readout screen. Flames move around the green disk at the center of the screen as numbers read across the bottom. Rebel base, 3 minutes and closing. Red Leader looks over at his wingmen. Red Group, this is Red Leader. Dodonna moves to the intercom as he fiddles with the computer keys. Rendezvous at Mark 6.1. Wedge over the speaker. This is Red 2, flying toward you. And Biggs over the speaker. Red 3, standing by. Dodonna over the headset. Red Leader, this is Base 1. Keep half of your group out of range for the next run. Copy, Base 1. Luke, take Red 2 and 3. Hold up here and wait for my signal to start your run. Luke nods his head. The X-Wing fighters of Luke, Biggs, and Wedge fly in formation, high above the Death Star's surface. Luke peers out from his cockpit. 2 X-Wings move across the surface of the Death Star. Red Leader's X-Wing drops down to the surface, leading to the exhaust port. Red Leader looks around to watch for the TIE fighters. He begins to perspire. This is it. Red Leader roams down the trench of the Death Star as lasers streak across the black heavens. A huge remote control laser cannon fires at the approaching Rebel fighters. The Rebel fighters evade the Imperial laser blasts. Red 10 looks around for the Imperial fighters. We should be able to see it by now. From the cockpit of the Rebel pilots, the surface of the Death Star streaks by, with Imperial laser fire shooting toward them. Keep your eyes open for those fighters. There's too much interference. 3 X-Wing fighters move in formation down the Death Star's trench. Red 5, can you see them from where you are? Luke looks down at the Death Star's surface below. No sign of a... Wait! Red 10 looks up and sees the Imperial fighters. Coming in, 0.35. I see them. 3 TIE fighters, Vader, flanked by 2 wingmen, dive in tight formation. The sun reflects off their dominant solar fins as they loop toward the Death Star's surface. Red Leader pulls his targeting device in front of his eyes and makes several adjustments. I'm in range. Red Leader's X-Wing moves up the Death Star trench. Targets coming up. Red Leader looks at his computer target readout screen. He then looks to his targeting device. Just hold them off for a few seconds. Vader adjusts his control lever and dives on the X-Wing fighters. Close up formation. The 3 TIE fighters move in formation across the Death Star's surface. Red Leader lines up his target on the targeting device crosshairs. Vader and his wingmen zoom down the trench. Vader rapidly approaches the 2 X-Wings of Red 10 and Red 12. Vader's laser cannon flashes below the view of the front porthole. The X-Wings show in the center of Vader's computer screen. Red 12's X-Wing fighter is hit by Vader's laser fire, and it explodes into flames against the trench. Red 10 works at his controls furiously, trying to avoid Vader's fighter behind him. You'd better let her loose. Red Leader is concentrating on his targeting device. Almost there. Red 10 panics. I can't hold them! Vader and his wingmen whip through the trench in pursuit of the rebel fighters. Vader coolly pushes the fire button on his control stick. Darth Vader's well-aimed laser fire proves to be unavoidable and strikes Red 10's ship. Red 10 screams in anguish and pain. Red 10's ship explodes and bursts into flame. Grimly, Red Leader takes careful aim and watches his computer targeting device, which shows the target lined up in the crosshairs, and fires. It's away! An armed Imperial stormtrooper is knocked to the floor from the attack explosion. Other troopers scurrying about the corridors are knocked against the wall and lose their balance. Leia and the others stare at the computer screen. It's a hit! Negative. Red Leader looks back at the receding Death Star. Tiny explosions are visible in the distance. Negative. It didn't go in. It just impacted on the surface. Darth Vader pulls off in pursuit as Red Leader's X-Wing passes the Death Star horizon. Vader swings his ship around for the next kill. Red Leader, we're right above you. Turn to point. Luke tries to spot Red Leader. He looks down at the Death Star's surface. 05, we'll cover for you. Stay there. A wary Red Leader looks about nervously. I just lost my starboard engine. Luke looks excitedly toward Red Leader's X-Wing. Get set to make your attack run. Vader's gloved hands make contact with the control sticks as he presses their firing buttons. Red Leader begins to gain control of his ship. Laser bolts are flung from Vader's TIE fighter, connecting with Red Leader's Rebel X-Wing fighter. Red Leader buys it, creating a tremendous explosion far below. He screams and is destroyed. Luke looks out the window of his X-Wing at the explosion far below. For the first time, he feels the helplessness of this situation. Grand Moff Tarkin casts a sinister eye at the computer screen. Rebel base, 1 minute and closing. Dodonna and Princess Leia, with 3PO beside them, listen intently to the talk between the pilots. The room is grim after Red Leader's death. Princess Leia nervously paces the room. Biggs, Wedge, let's close it up. We're going in. And we're going in full throttle. The horizon twists as Wedge begins to pull out. Right with you, boss. The two X-Wings peel off against the background of stars and dive toward the Death Star. Luke, at that speed, will you be able to pull out in time? It'll be just like Beggar's Canyon back home. The three X-Wings move in, unleashing a barrage of laser fire. Laser bolts are returned from the Death Star. Luke's lifelong friend struggles with his controls. We'll stay back far enough to cover you. Flak and laser bolts flash outside Luke's cockpit window. My scope shows the tower, but I can't see the exhaust port. Are you sure the computer can hit it? The Death Star laser cannon slowly rotates as it shoots laser bolts. Luke looks around for the Imperial TIE fighters. He thinks for a moment, then moves his targeting device into position. Watch yourself. Increase speed, full throttle. Wedge looks excitedly about for any signs of the TIE fighters. What about the tower? You worry about those fighters. I'll worry about the tower. Luke's X-Wing streaks through the trench, firing lasers. Luke breaks into a nervous sweat as the laser fire is returned, nicking one of his wings close to the engine. To R2. R2, that stabilizer has broken loose again. See if you can't lock it down. R2 works to repair the damages. The canyon wall rushes by in the background, making his delicate task seem even more precarious. 2 laser cannons are firing on the rebel fighters. Wedge looks up and sees the TIE ships. Luke's targeting device marks off the distance to the target. Vader and his wingmen zoom closer. Vader adjusts his controls and fires laser bolts at the 2 X-Wings flying down the trench. He scores a direct hit on Wedge. "I'm hit! I can't stay with you!" "Get clear, Wedge. You can't do any more good back there." "I'm sorry." Wedge pulls his crippled X-Wing back away from the battle. Vader watches the escape, but issues a command to his wingmen. "Let him go. Stay on the leader." Luke's X-Wing speeds down the trench, the 3 TIE fighters still in perfect unbroken formation, tail close behind. Biggs looks around at the TIE fighters. He's worried. "Hurry, Luke. They're coming in much faster this time. I can't hold them." The 3 TIE fighters move ever closer, closing in on Luke and Biggs. Luke looks back anxiously at little R2. "R2, try and increase the power." Ignoring the bumpy ride, flak, and lasers, a beeping R2-D2 struggles to increase the power, his dome turning from side to side. Stealthily, the TIE formation creeps closer. Vader adjusts his control stick. Biggs looks around at the TIE fighters. Luke looks into his targeting device. He moves it away for a moment and ponders its use. He looks back into the computer targeter. "Hurry up, Luke!" Luke and his wingmen race through the Death Star trench. Biggs moves in to cover for Luke, but Vader gains on him. Biggs sees the TIE fighter aiming at him. "Wait!" Vader squeezes the fire button on his controls. Biggs' cockpit explodes around him, lighting him in red. Biggs' ship bursts into a million flaming bits and scatters across the surface. Leia and the others stare at the computer board. Luke is stunned by Biggs' death. His eyes are watering, but his anger is also growing. Grand Moff Tarkin watches the projected target screen with satisfaction. "Rebel base, 30 seconds and closing." Vader takes aim on Luke and talks to the wingmen. "I'm on the leader." Luke's ship streaks through the trench of the Death Star. Princess Leia returns her general's worried and doubtful glances with solid, grim determination. 3PO seems nervous. "Hang on, R2!" Luke concentrates on his targeting device. 3 TIE fighters charge away down the trench toward Luke. Vader's fingers curl around the control stick. Luke adjusts the lens of his targeting device. Luke's ship charges down the trench. Luke lines up the yellow crosshair lines of the targeting device's screen. He looks into the targeting device and then starts at a voice he hears. "Use the Force, Luke." It's Ben's voice. The Death Star trench zooms by. Luke looks up and then starts to look back into the targeting device. He has second thoughts. "Let go, Luke." A grim determination sweeps across Luke's face as he closes his eyes and starts to mumble Ben's training to himself. Luke's fighter streaks through the trench. "The Force is strong with this one." Vader follows Luke's X-Wing down the trench. Luke looks into the targeting device, then away as he hears Ben's voice. "Luke, trust me." Luke's hand reaches for the control panel and presses the button. The targeting device moves away. Leia and the others watch the projected screen. "His computer is off. Luke, you switched off your targeting computer. What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm all right." Luke's ship streaks ever closer to the exhaust port. He looks at the Death Star surface streaking by. R2 turns his head from side to side, beeping in anticipation. The 3 TIE fighters, manned by Vader and his 2 wingmen, follow Luke's X-Wing down the trench. Vader maneuvers his controls as he looks at his doomed target. He presses the fire button on his control stick. Laser fire shoots toward Luke's X-Wing fighter. A large burst of Vader's laser fire engulfs R2. The arms go limp, and the smoking little droid, makes a high-pitched sound. Luke looks frantically back over his shoulder at R2. Smoke billows out around little R2, and smoke begins to fly. "I've lost R2!" R2's beeping sounds die off. Leia and the others stare intently at the projected screen, while 3PO watches the princess. Lights representing the Death Star and the targets glow brightly. "The Death Star has cleared the planet. The Death Star has cleared the planet." Tarkin glares at the projected target screen. "Rebel base in range. You may fire when ready. Commence primary ignition." An officer reaches up and presses buttons on the control panel as green lighted buttons turn to red. The 3 TIE fighters zoom down the Death Star trench in pursuit of Luke, never breaking formation. Luke looks anxiously at the exhaust port. Vader adjusts his control stick, checking his projected targeting screens. Luke's ship barrels down the trench. Vader's targeting computer swings around into position, and Vader takes careful aim on Luke's X-Wing fighter. "I have you now." He pushes the fire button. The 3 TIE fighters move in on Luke. As Vader's center fighter unleashes a volley of laser fire, one of the TIE ships at his side bursts into flames. The 2 remaining ships continue to move in. Luke looks about, wondering whose laser fire destroyed Vader's wingman. Vader is taken by surprise and looks out from his cockpit. "What?" Vader's wingman searches around him, trying to locate the unknown attacker. Han and Chewbacca grin from ear to ear in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. "Yahoo!" The Millennium Falcon heads right at the 2 TIE fighters. It's a collision course. The wingman spots the pirate ship coming at him and warns the Dark Lord. "Look out!" Vader's wingman panics at the sight of the oncoming pirate starship and veers radically to one side, colliding with Vader's TIE fighter in the process. Vader's wingman crashes into the sidewall of the trench and explodes. Vader's damaged ship spins out of the trench with a damaged wing. Vader's ship spins out of control with a bent solar fin, heading for deep space. Vader turns round and round in circles as his ship spins into space. Solo's ship moves in toward the Death Star trench. Solo, smiling, speaks to Luke over his headset mic. "You're all clear, kid." Leia and the others listen to Solo's transmission. "Now let's blow this thing and go home." Luke looks up and smiles. He concentrates on the exhaust port and then fires his laser torpedoes. Luke's torpedoes shoot toward the port and seem to simply disappear into the surface and not explode. But the shots do find their mark and have gone into the exhaust port. They're headed for the main reactor. Luke throws back his head in relief. An Imperial soldier runs to the control panel board and pulls the attack lever as the board behind him begins to light up. "Stand by to fire at Rebel base." 2 X-Wings, a Y-Wing, and the pirate ship race toward Yavin in the distance. Several Imperial soldiers, flanking a pensive Grand Moff Tarkin, busily push control levers and buttons. "Standing by." The rumble of a distant explosion begins. The rebel ships race out of sight, leaving the moon-like Death Star alone against a blanket of stars. Several small flashes appear on the surface, and the Death Star bursts into a supernova, creating a spectacular heavenly display. "Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million." Luke is at ease. His eyes are closed. Ben's voice comes to him. "Remember, the Force will be with you, always." The ship rocks back and forth. Vader's ship spins off into space. The rebel ships race toward the 4th moon of Yavin. Luke climbs out of his starship fighter and is cheered by a throng of ground crew and pilots. Luke climbs down the ladder as they all welcome him with laughter, cheers, and shouting. Princess Leia rushes toward him. "Luke! Luke!" She throws her arms around Luke and hugs him as they dance around in a circle. Solo runs in toward Luke and they embrace one another, slapping each other on the back. "Hey, hey! I knew you'd come back. I just knew it." "Well, I wasn't going to let you get all the credit and take all the reward." Luke and Han look at one another as Solo playfully shoves at Luke's face. Leia moves in between them. "Hey, I knew there was more to you than money." Luke looks toward the ship. "Oh no!" The fried little R2 is lifted off the back of the fighter and carried off under the worried eyes of 3PO. "Oh my! R2, can you hear me? Say something! You can repair him, can't you?" "We'll get to work on him right away." "You must repair him, sir. If any of my circuits or gears will help, I'll gladly donate them." "He'll be all right." Luke, Han, and Chewbacca enter the huge ruins of the main temple. Hundreds of troops are lined up in neat rows. Banners are flying, and at the far end stands a vision in white. The beautiful, young Senator Leia. Luke and the others solemnly march up the long aisle and kneel before Senator Leia. From one side of the temple marches a shined-up and fully repaired R2-D2. He waddles up to the group and stands next to an equally pristine 3PO, who is rather awestruck by the whole event. Chewbacca is confused. Dodonna and several other dignitaries sit on the left of Princess Leia. Leia is dressed in a long white dress and is staggeringly beautiful. She rises and places a gold medallion around Han's neck. He winks at her. She then repeats the ceremony with Luke, who is moved by the event. They turn and face the assembled troops, who all bow before them. Chewbacca growls, and R2 beeps with happiness. The end credits roll over the stars. The end. Thanks as always for listening to this movie reading for Star Wars: A New Hope. If you'd like to help the channel, please subscribe. Don't forget to comment with what you would like me to read next. See you in the next movie reading.